wouldn't say it's I wouldn't say it's corny. It's it's just maybe it is corny. It does it kind of like you've got to see some stuff. I'll put it to you this way: if you see some guys doing some things, do you instantly look at them like they're not doing it right?
Well, sometimes, but like I see some of the stuff they're doing, I'm like, all right, that's good, sneak. But then sometimes like they're way too, maybe too close,
Yeah, yeah.
maybe splat like, but sometimes it doesn't matter. They're gonna bite.
No, yeah, yeah.
You
Like
know what I mean? So sometimes it's weird, but a lot of times I'm like, man, I'd be doing that a little different. Or just kind of like, why'd you do that kind of thing?
I look at sight fishing. So I always kind of call sight fishing as you got like 90%, or I'm thinking about this for a second. You got 50% of fish that, like, I don't even know if it's 50, but I kind of count it as like 50, just say 50% of the fish anybody can catch.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even consider those sight, like that. Those aren't even sight fish to me. Those are just like fish on a bed.
Yeah.
Then you got like these other ones that take some time. And then you got these like 10 percenters. And the 10 percenters are the ones that like win you tournaments. Now that might be a 2-pounder or a 10-pounder. It's irrelevant how big they are because big ones, small ones, big ones do weird things.
100%. Yeah.
But they can still be just as easy as a 2-pound. Like the size of the fish rarely matters about how hard they are to catch.
Yeah. I've had some bucks that I'm like, can't get to bite.
Correct.
And then some bite it every flip. It's
right. So I don't, but when I'm in a tournament or when I watch the tournament and I see a guy and there's like two of them, like there's two up there and they panic and they catch the male or something or whatever. And I'm going, what were you like? There's certain things, and I'm not saying look, there's a time to catch the male and a time not to, but you can tell by the way they acted and what when he said it, he was worried about just catching a fish. He wasn't like, I know what's going on and I need to catch this male. It was like, I better catch one of them and this one's going to bite. So I'm just going to catch it. And I was going, that's a good sight fisherman or so-called good sight fisherman. And I'm like, no, man, he totally missed that one.
Yeah.
So,
And like, I think sight fishing tournaments and just going head hunting is like a completely different mindset and animal altogether. Because the most like sight fishing I do is like guiding. Just we're after one, maybe two, three on a really good day. Because
really?
we're passing up like we see like with clients, like we're passing up like 5s and 6s.
Where's this at though?
Oh, just like LBJ, Ivy and stuff like that. Like
Okay.
just not even bother them, because what we do is kind of like you're booking a hunt. Like you're booking for one fish, maybe two.
So they know that going into it.
Oh, 100%. Like we tell them like, we could not catch a fish today. We could not see a fish today, but they're down.
See, so we used to have a lake around here. It was still around here, but like when I used to go out, yeah, we didn't stop on anything under 7.
Yeah.
I almost started a guy. So this was way back before any of these guys started putting out these crazy sight fishing trips. Or no, they're not sight fishing trips. Let me say this. Before they started putting out these like really high dollar guy trips, I almost went and was like, man, I'm going to charge. I would never have thought of 1,000 or 2,000, but I was like, I'm going to charge. I thought about maybe going 1,000. But my guy trip was this: you will catch one over 7 pounds, or your money back. And I said this was probably like 10 years ago. And someone was like, you can't do that. And I go, yeah, I can. And like, no, I don't think. And they're like, no, you can't do that. And I was like, why not? I was like, I'm pretty confident we'll catch one over 7 pounds. I think I caught one over 7 pounds, like if I wanted to almost every day that we were going. And so I was going, yeah, like it's no big deal. And I never ended up doing it, which I'm kind of glad. Not saying I'm glad I didn't. It would have been, I don't know. But I almost did that. But yeah, like, because when we were out there, we were just hunting 10s, like anything, like a 10, like a 7 pound, like I might flip on a 7 pounder. And if it like turned, I'm like, oh, let me catch this real quick. You know?
Yeah, you know when they're done when you can get them pretty quick.
Yeah, like okay,
Right.
and now you can't do that. Now but that for a while that lake was like that, and I think a lot of people when I look at I have oh man, I don't even know if I want to get into that. Well, I'll get into that in a second. But so y'all just go out there looking for just bigs.
Yep. Yeah, straight up. We require like a 2-day minimum too. So like when they come with us, they're going 2 days. Because
Yeah, I
some,
like that.
you got to put the time in, dude. It's not just you go get on one, you catch it. I mean, it takes time. You might find it in the last hour of the first day, or even the last hour of your last day, and catch it. So it's just a constant hunting game.
Yeah, what I realized about so guy I have to so I don't guide that much. I almost guide I'm trying to think if I guided I kind of went on one guide trip last year. Okay. I try to not guide. I just don't not that I don't like it. It's just that's just not what I have to semi know the person and I have to know what they're wanting.
Yeah.
And I'll take you on a guide trip.
Yep.
And it's not for tournaments or anything like it. Like if you literally and I really want to do the sight fishing. Like sight fishing is the most fun. It's the most fun. It's the most rewarding. The problem is I forget at times that I'm looking at these fish. I'm like, oh, this is going to be good in my head. And then we get out there, and I'm like, hey, just throw right there. I'm like,
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you know where I'm about to go with this.
Yes. And we made it a deal where like 90% of the time we're flipping for the fish for them. Because I know it sounds so weird,
I know.
but
not.
but I've done it for so long that like your best chance of catching that fish is for me to do it and you watch instead of, and don't get me wrong, I will teach, I'll let them the rod and stuff like that, but their best chance of getting that fish in the boat is me doing it. It's kind of like a high fence hunt, or like not even a high fence hunt, but like a
Yeah.
bear hunt or something. Like the guy takes you, stalks it, does all the work for you, and you pull the trigger. It's pretty much what it is.
So I try not to do that. Now, granted, I try not to do that because, like I said, they're not. It's two different things, right? You're going after a giant, and that's the whole purpose. I'm going after like a teaching aspect.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I can stop and I tell them, I'm like, hey, look, 2-pounder, 10-pounders are relevant. You're trying to figure something out. If you can figure out how to catch this 2-pounder, it doesn't really matter, right? And I used to do that all the time, of where we would just stop on every single fish. And I said, and we would stop on the easier ones, but eventually throughout the day, the best sight fishing trips are the ones when you find that one. And the one is it's not the big one. Sometimes it's a decent one usually.
Yeah.
But if I stay there long enough, it's probably because it's a bigger one, right? And you sometimes don't know what you're getting into, but you get that one fish, and the one fish is the one where it's like when you start fishing for it, and as it starts to happen, and as you start to do things, and you're like, okay, now watch what I do here. And then as it starts to come together, you can see them going, what in the world is going on here? And I'm like, oh yeah. And so you start getting this fish to do, you're telling them what's about to happen, and then you're doing it. And then they're watching it happen. And you're like, okay, watch this next flip. Watch what it does on this. And then they do it. And you can like almost hold your shot. And then it bites. And then like, do you see what just happened? And so then they get to going. And so I let them kind of figure it out, and they'll mess up and make mistakes. And I said, hey, we're not going anywhere. And at that point in time, most of them have cared less about the size of the fish, catching the fish, any of that stuff. They see the game now.
It's funny you say that. Like I always tell people this, like seeing the process is just as fun as catching it.
It's way more fun.
Yeah, like seeing because the process is, it's kind of the same but different every time. But I tell them all the time, like it's way more fun to work for it than roll up, one flip, they bite, you get in the boat, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it is a lot like I would say high fence hunting, in the sense of like you can hold up this 10-pounder. The fight was kind of like every once in a while you kind of get one of them crazy. I'm sure y'all had some, but it's usually really quick. it's usually really like, it's coming. It's still awesome. You catch it and then you just release it. It's pretty cool. I will say that like usually when all that happens, I like those trips. I would say what you're doing is way more pressure because in so many of those other trips, they'll set the hook and lose it.
Yeah.
And you're going, dang it. Okay. I hope this thing sticks around. I hope I can do it again. Like, right. And it might be a 4-pounder or a 3-pounder, right? And that's why I brought up this question is that it sucks. Cause I've had a guide trip. I've done guide trips before where it was like 9:30 or 10 o'clock, and we've caught like not sight fishing, just say we've been fishing. And a guy's out there, and say I have 2 guys in the boat, and I catch 1 or 2, and one guy catches 1 or 2, and then another guy like loses 3, and this guy's lost 2. And I get that one of them gets a phone call like, "Hey, how's it going out there?" Like, it's all right, man. It's kind of slow. Yeah. We're not catching much. And I'm sitting here like, you do realize what we had hooked up. Like it's been a phenomenal day, but y'all, you lost them. And so I couldn't imagine going 4 hours, or I'm not saying 4, but for the process of like looking for one, all that stuff. Oh, yeah. Maybe it's 3 hours and 3.5 hours looking for one, and you find one, and then all that happens, and they lose it because 90% of the time it's a bad hook. Like 99% of the time it's a bad hook set.
Yeah. And so when I do it, dude, before we even go look, I flip out in like 30 foot and let it sink to the bottom, and I tell them like, "Let me see your hook set," and I let them swing like
still doesn't work.
But for us, usually it does. But this guy Dale, he asked a question: have I ever hit one, like cracked it and hit it in the rod? Yeah, I have, because they've asked me to.
They've asked you to, yeah.
I've had people like, "Hey," like they're like maybe an older gentleman or dude that doesn't fish much, like, "Hey, can you like set the hook and like I'll reel it in," because I'm not like, they're not confident enough to do it, and I'm like, "Sure," and whack it and get a little bit of tension on it, give them the rod, and they reel it in.
Yeah, like because I'm telling you, and I did a whole video on this. I guess last year I did a video, and I was like, "Hey, it's different sight fishing when you set the hook." And I was like, it's just hard to explain, but the best I can think is if you're fishing out there and you're just worming around and one bites, you're not looking at it. You feel the bite. And 90% of the people go out there and go, and they're calm, and they reel down and check to see if it's there again. And this is seconds go by, and then they set the hook. And they've done that for 20 years of their life. And then they throw out there and they're watching this thing and they're doing all this, and they're not in the right position, because 99% of the time we are not in the right position when we sight fish. Like our rod isn't right. We're in different positions.
Oh yeah. It's not hooks. Yeah. I get what you're saying.
So you're not in the right, and then you see it bite, and anytime it's just like topwater fish, anything, you see it bite and you want to set the hook. Now we've been doing it long enough to know that's like, there's times when, yes, you have to set a hook quick, but a lot of times you just reel down to them. But they reel down to them, and everything goes, they're twice as fast. They don't get in the right position. They get half of a hook set, and everything's like this, right? I mean, they're not, no. And they miss it. And I don't care how many times. And usually I like to stop on like 2 and 3 pounders first, like, and so they can see the smaller ones, and like they're not as jacked up.
Yeah. But and we've kind of dialed in a process, and like something where it's not bulletproof, but it's almost. Like we'll get maybe that another time, but it's like almost bulletproof, where it's a total unique process. It's pretty cool. And then, like you said, the payoff, like the reaction, is awesome when they do get the fish in the boat. Like I've noticed, I've done when people catch big ones, like just casting out, it's cool. We're high-fiving and hugging, but there's something different about like going through the process, getting the fish to bite, getting the fish in, and it's like on steroids, the reaction.
But the pressure, when you catch a big one randomly, you don't know it's about to happen.
Exactly.
From the start of you seeing it, it would basically be like you're hunting, and I'm not saying, but like you're hunting and you're just sitting around, and all of a sudden this deer walks out, it gives you 3 seconds. It's a giant, and you get to shoot it right away, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
But if you sit there and you're like, hey, we're bow hunting, right? And the biggest deer you've ever seen walks out 300 yards away, and you got to wait for 30 minutes for it to walk up to you. And it's probably going to walk up to you for, like, say you knew it was going to walk up to you, but you got to sit there and watch it the whole time, not move, not make a mistake, not do any of these things, waiting for it to get, so there's an excitement, and it builds up for a long time as you're waiting for this to happen. Yep. And because they know what's on the line. A lot of the time, what's on the line is their biggest fish of their life. And they're having to, and it's right there at their fingertips. Like it's right there. You can almost touch it. And you're like, okay, don't mess this up. Because as long as I don't mess this up, it's here. It's right. Like, I'll never have another guaranteed chance at this.
Yeah. And it's almost guaranteed. Like, you see it, you look at it.
Well, so cool. And I want everyone to realize something too, is I don't know the answer. I know the answer I want to give to this question. Me and Rick haven't talked about this stuff. So like, there's some backstory too, that I did a video the other day, and I haven't replied to this comment, but I got to reply to this one random comment because the comment made me mad. And because the comment, like, they ask questions, I give an answer. And then when I give the answer, a lot of the people that have pushback are because they don't like the answer I gave. It's the right answer, but they wanted an answer that fits them and that they liked, right? And so they just get mad at the fact that it didn't match what they wanted their answer to be something, and I didn't give them the answer that they wanted it to be, so they get pushback. I'm interested to see what this is. What you think about this question? Can you read?
Yeah, I can read. It's just, honestly, I know it sounds so dumb. It just depends on the fish, man. Like, I know that sounds so nonchalant.
Do you find the big ones are hit and miss? See,
very rare. I mean,
very rarely.
Very rare. There's one that's like, and who knows what happened to it?
There are more hit than miss.
Yes, 100%, dude. But every now and then, I bet, like, out of all the fish I see, there's like 3 or 4 a year that, like, never got to bite, never got to act right. 3 or 4 a year. And when I look at them, almost, probably 5, 6 a week.
Out of hundreds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe so 4. Like, someone was like, well, I know this sounds bad, but people might not like this answer. I'm very confident in a lot of things. Sight fishing, I'm more confident than any other kind of fishing. So, like, I don't know how to else answer it, but honestly, when people are like, well, like, how many, when you stopped on fish today, how many did you, like, move on from? I'm like, well, none. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, man, I catch like 90. I'll put it to you this way. There might be a 2-pounder there that's going to be super hard to catch. I'm not wasting my time on 2-pounders. Now, have I? From when I started sight fishing, there were times where I spent 3 hours on a 2-pounder. 3 hours, no doubt. I got so mad, and it was just fun fishing. But what I did is I was like, okay, the way my mind thought is if I figure out how to catch this fish, it's irrelevant that it's a 2-pounder. And in my opinion, if it's a 10-pounder and I run across this, if I figure out how to catch the 2-pounder today, I know how to catch the 10-pounder tomorrow that acts the same way. And in doing so, the hard ones, when you fish for the hardest ones you can ever find in your life, right? It makes all the other ones get really easy. And so rarely have I just left one ever. The only thing is I don't leave them. Like, it kind of depends. So, like, if I'm on fishing a tournament and there's fish everywhere and there's a 3-pounder that's hard to catch, and I'm like, 20 minutes go by, I'm like, I'm able to go another 15 feet and find another one that's one flipper. So there's that. But for the most part, if it's a big one, man, I don't know if I'm ever, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm leaving.
Yeah. And there's some that, like, you don't know what happened the day before in that fish. Maybe
Yeah,
somebody
like
hooked. That's a
hooked
big
it.
deal to take into consideration too.
Well, yeah, there was one on Rayburn where I made Russell won it, and I was in like 9th or 10th place, and so I just went to a whole new area and started sight fishing and ran across this like ape. It was like one of the worst sight fishing. I ended up catching like the second biggest bag, but maybe the first biggest bag of the day. I might have the biggest bag of the day, but I ran across this one fish. I don't even want to get in the story because it still makes me mad about what all happened. About this guy that came in there, knew I was fishing the tournament, and was just goofing around and went around there trying to catch fish while I was sight fishing. Like, long story short, but there was this one 7 or 8 pounder. I couldn't figure out why she was so hard to catch. Like, something was wrong with her, you know. I eventually stuck her, got her to the boat. She come off by the boat. My coiler didn't net it. Didn't even try. Like, long story, the whole thing was bad. So I get done with it, and I'm talking to someone like after the event and stuff, and they were like, "Ah, man." Anyways, found out later that I just happened to talk to a guy who was sight fishing. He's from Conroe, and he was like, "Man, yeah, I went in there." He's like, "Yeah, I lost this 7 or 8 pounder," and we talked about where it was the same fish. And I was like, "No wonder it was so hard to get to bite." He's like,
Yeah,
"Did you get her to bite?" I'm like, "Yeah, but it took
took a
me
while.
forever, and then I lost it, and it was a bad ordeal." But
Yeah,
yeah, like it made sense why it was so that one. And then the Toledo Bend tournament I won day one. There was this one sight. I started on her like that. Like there were hundreds of sight fish everywhere. And there was this one that was like a 6.5 pounder. And I'm like, that one's the dumb one. Like I am starting on that one. And I checked her the day before, and she's just sitting out there like, hey, just throw
yeah,
something on me and I'll
yeah.
get it to bite. So I pull up there the next morning, and I was like, I don't even need to see this fish. Just throw up there. I threw up there, and like 30 minutes go by, nothing. And I finally got light enough to where you could see, and I'm looking up there, and she's like off the bed. And I'm sitting there and fishing, and I'm like, what is wrong with this thing? Well, then I had been in that area for 2 or 3 days, like fishing around, and a crappie fisherman was in there. And we talked every day, me and that dude. He was just crappie fishing. And I was like, every time I'd see a group of crappie, I'd tell him where they were, and he'd go catch them. So he was like, and he comes by and he goes, it took him a while. He kind of like made his way by me on the other side of the creek. He's like, is she there? I'm like, yeah, but man, like, whatever. He's like, hey, man, she got caught yesterday by these people, and they had her out for like 10 minutes taking pictures of her and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, thanks. I don't know if that was info or not, but I was like, all right. And I just loaded up the tow motor and went off because I was like, no wonder. But I didn't know.
Yeah, dude, it's
So
crazy. Every fish is different. I've had fish where you catch them, lose, or like you hook one, comes off, and then you flip right back in there and it eats again. You're like, what?
eats again.
Why can't they all do that?
Yeah. The hardest ones so at Grand Lake a couple years ago, it was real cold, and I didn't plan on sight fishing. I'd seen one or two, and that's it. Like whatever. And day one was so hard, and at like 12 o'clock I had 0, and I was like, well, I know where 1 or 2 sight fish are, so I went and fished for them, caught them, and caught three of them. I had 3 for 12 pounds, and I was going, what am I doing? Let's just do this tomorrow. And I mean, the water was like 57. Like they shouldn't even been up there. Next day I'd go catch 5. It takes me all day long to catch 5. I weighed in like the second biggest bag of I had like 20 something pounds, and I think I finished 11th. I missed the cut by I don't know what I would have done the next day, because I just had to go find new ones.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there were any new ones up, but like those fish, I will say that those were the 5 hardest fish I've ever fished. They all took over an hour.
Yeah.
Every one of them. They were insane. Like most of
What was
them
the biggest?
Huh?
What was the biggest?
Not Grand Lake, man. They were all like 4
5,
pounders.
4, 5. Yeah.
Yeah, they were all like I had like 20 something, like not 20, like 25, like 20 point something. They're all like, maybe I don't think any of them were over 5. They're all just good ones.
Yeah.
But they were collectively the 5 hardest fish. But I mean, but my deal is I was never leaving any of them, because I only found those 5. Like, I don't know if I would have found another one. So I was like, hey, when I found one, I just stayed on it and go, I'm gonna stay on it until I can't catch it.
Yeah.
And I caught every one of them, but yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, it's just to answer this question. Every fish is different, and You just kind of have your own process and try it on every one of them, and some of them works. I mean, most of the time it works, but sometimes you just don't catch them.
I was just reading stuff.
I can't see him. How do you see him?
Well, I have him over here. You might have to turn.
Oh, there they
are. Oh, so every once in a while I get comments about. I'm gonna look for y'all here. Just so I'm gonna explain this to this guy right here. I'm looking it up. I'm gonna see if it shows up. Okay. So I don't love bed fishing, but the current on the St. Lawrence makes it more of a pain. So I've been to the St. Lawrence River once in my entire life. Okay. Yeah. It was after the Champlain event we had up there. And so me and Russell went over there and we just put it in some random place right by, I don't know, like in the river. And so I'm looking at it right now. There's a video up. It was 4 years ago. That's when it happened. And for Devin, the title of it, go look this up. It's like the title is Wife Beats Me Fishing for Smallmouth. I didn't even know what I was doing on YouTube. Like, there's not even a thumbnail. It's like maybe just her holding a fish. Yeah. Go look at that thing. The most fun sight fishing I've ever had. And the current was there, but rarely did the current bother me. It was so much fun. We smashed them. She had never caught smallmouth. So like, but she's over there catching 4-pounders like it's another 4-pounder.
It's insane, dude. Yeah. They're so dumb. It's awesome.
So you done it up there?
Yeah, I've done it a few years up there that time of year. It's ridiculous.
It's like you can get out of it. Like you don't have to fish in the current.
No, but I mean, I've seen it where like it seems like later when they're getting done, that current stuff plays because they're not all, they're not on all the flats anymore. They're a little deeper, kind of in the current behind a rock, and that's just like being efficient to catch them. They're still dumb and easy to catch, but you just gotta upsize your weight or position the boat or let it, drift down to it or something. But
right,
makes it a little difficult. But I mean, if there's a smallmouth that doesn't bite quick, you can go find another one.
Yeah,
straight up.
So, yeah, we started bypassing a lot of them, just trying to go. We were only there though for that one day, so like we didn't bypass too many.
Yeah.
But we definitely started looking for like 4 and 5 pound. But then the wind kind of got up and whatever. But and this one, it's funny. What's y'all's go-to bait? What's my only bait? Like I just throw a rage bug on all of them.
Yeah, the rage crawl, white rage crawl.
I guess not up there around. I threw just a shaky head worm up there at St. Lawrence, but 99% of the time I just throw, like if it's a largemouth, I'm just throwing a rage bug on all of them.
Yeah, it's not the entire country. Yeah, it's not. It's like I say it's 80%, or I say it's 90% like knowing what the fish is doing, and like 10% rod and bait setup. Like
I give the bait almost zero.
Yeah, exactly. So
my bait of choice is 100%. Everything that I do is 100% based on hooking and landing the fish. Mm-hmm. So I throw the rage bug because of the size and how thin it is, and it's just for a better hook penetration. It has nothing to do with that. Like the bait's compact and does things, but it's really just based on it fits the hook I want to throw. And I've done sight fishing videos, so you can go check those out. But like, it's just bait, like the rod, the line. Like I throw 25 pound, like I don't even throw braid hardly anymore. I just throw 25 pound. Like I'm probably going to go to 30 next year.
Yeah, we were up 25.
I don't even care about 25. I mean, I used to throw braid all the time, but yeah, I don't. What do you throw all the time?
Yeah, like just a white rage, but like Striking has that new rattling crawl, which is cool. It like has a rattle in it. I don't know if it makes a difference, but I like it. So that's what we throw, and you can see it. It gets in and out quick. I think that's a big deal. Like just being efficient, because some baits, like a jig drags just a little, so reeling it in 1,000 times, that drag pulling it, you're going to lose a few minutes of fishing, if that makes sense.
right? And so like, and this guy's right. Like, I think most of the people that I see throw too light of a rod when sight fishing, and a lot of it is because you're in a bad position in what happens, and a lot of times you don't have a lot of time to set the hook. So like you're in bad positions. You're a lot. So I throw a really heavy rod. I'm not saying it's like it's the rod. I mean, I throw this rod to frogfish and do everything with, but I mean, it's a rod that sticks them because, like I said, you're out of position a lot of times. It's a, and when everything goes right, you can. I always tell everyone, you can in fishing when everything's right, you can basically get away with anything. Like I could throw a flipping stick on a crankbait and land every fish if the fish inhales the crankbait, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but just
So
what's efficient and what's
right, what's efficient? Well, we throw rods cranking for the fish that has one hook. It's a 9-pounder, and you're trying, and it's jumping, and you're hoping that you have the right setup that like gives you the best chance to land that fish, not the one that inhales it. That fish. Well, it's kind of like sight fishing. If every one of them just eats it and swims off, I could throw a spinning rod and probably land every one of them. But so many times you get one that just does that, and you're sitting here and it does, and
you're not down. Your rod tip's up, moving. You gotta.
So
and sometimes it's a perfect. They eat it and swim off.
Right. So he's right. He says when he says to help with the error on your part, error on your part is true, or just the fact that you're not in the right position to do, like I don't care who you are, you're going to be in the wrong position to set the hook, but you still have to do it. So like you want that to get the error out of, like to make up for the error. So he's right about that.
Yeah. Does it blow your mind that like you see them eat it and your line's tight and you don't feel
feel them? Yeah.
Isn't that insane? Like that always like gets in my mind, like when I'm fishing a crank or like a worm, like how many have it and pick it up and drop it and I'll never know.
I have about 25 million stories on this.
Oh yeah, I have a ton too. Oh yeah,
big ones I will say this about big ones. Big ones are weird in the sense of, I'm not saying all of them, but they will surprise. Like I'll put it to you this way: I've had more big ones that you see that you're like, I don't know what that thing's doing, and this might be for a long day. Like this might be okay. Like let's set up for this one, right?
Yeah.
And so you start fishing for it. It's not even on the bed, right? It's like there's a male up there, and she's and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you might not even be on the bed, and she'll run over there and eat, and you're like, and you catch it, you're like, what was she? Why?
Yeah.
What? Because no other one would have done it, but like sometimes big ones are just like they flip a switch and they'll just bite.
Yeah. Or dude, I had one like it was this dude. He had me 3 days, and it was this dude's first day, and we pull up on one. It's a giant, and we're like kind of we're pretty far, and she like noses down on it and is about to do the deal. I'm like, all right, this fish is gonna be easy. I was like, let's move up a little bit to like get our odds of getting the fish in the boat a little better because there's a bunch of junk and to pull her through all that junk, just get closer. Dude, we got closer and like
screwed it all up.
All up, dude. All up. And then I've had it where it's like
the opposite happens. You get
closer, you make a flip and they're gone, and you're like, okay, this is gonna be a while. Then next flip, she noses in and eats it, and everything's good. It's wild.
And I got to tell everyone, when we started this, everyone knows that like a lot of times I have to title these something, and I was like, I titled it about. We are talking about big fish, so that's great. But I had zero intention of talking sight fishing. We just happened to like get to talking a minute before all this, guys, and this all of a sudden started, got into a sight fishing thing. Hold on, I want to see this. It seems like it was. Do you get that? Hold on. Seems like. Do you already have a limit? Would it be your personal best bet fish? So I kind of understand I think what he's asking or what he's talking about is like, I view sight fishing like, so this happened to me on Raven one time. We were on, there was an area and there was a bunch of us in this area. and I'm fishing for this fish, and I see a big one, like a 9-pounder, and she's not on the bed. She's swimming around, and there's a 3-pounder right there. And I'm watching, and I think I have like 3 or 4 at the time. Like I don't have a limit or nothing, but man, I am glad that at times this is the way my mind thinks. And I know I'd say not. I don't know what most people do in this situation. I didn't even blink in this situation. I know I can't catch the big one if I catch the male. Like I don't want to go into all that, but I'm sure like I can't catch the big one without the male. And so I'm leaving the male there, and the male's kind of swimming around too because the big one's kind of got her distracted. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm on the bed, and the male's bit like once or twice, right? But I'm trying not to. I'm not even trying to like get the male interested. I don't really even want to bite. And all of a sudden, I finally get this female to roll in, and I say that because I to this day, this was like 9 years ago. I still remember exactly how it happened. And I'll never forget. She comes around, and they're swimming side by side, right through the bed. And I'm like, finally, like it's been like 30 minutes, and I just kind of hop it, and it just goes, boop, and they never stop. And my line's taking off with them, and I push the button. And I'm like, and I'm watching because I don't know which one has it. I couldn't tell. And I'm like, crap. And my guy's like, dude, what are you doing? Am I calling there? I'm like, oh, I don't know which one has it. He's like, who cares? I'm like, oh, it matters. And so finally, it like when I'm dropped it and I reeled it back in, he goes, what if that was a big one? I'm like, what if it was a small one?
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, but what if it was I said, look, man, if I messed it up, it's gone. I'll never catch that female again. It won't matter. And like he couldn't compute that. Well, finally they come 9-pounder never shows back up again.
Yeah.
And they were like, are you upset about that? I'm like, no. Like
No.
I made the right decision. I know y'all might not think it's the right decision, but I was like, it's 100%. Like that's how 9 times out of 10 I'll come in with the big one because I like, so what? I don't know which one had it, but
yeah,
I've
had that with like clients on like their last day or like the last couple hours. And I'm like, dude, it might be either or, swing, see what happens. I've had it where it's the male and I had it where it's a female. But in that situation where it's like I bet you if it was the last hour of that tournament,
you
would have swung. You know what I mean? But yeah, total situation.
So there was a when we went down to Toho the second time, and I was sight fishing and I had to learn those Florida lake sight fishing. Like it's different. Like I like to find fish before the tournament and stuff. I'm not a big fan of like trying to find them during the tournament because I can see that going, especially in Florida when it can happen both ways. But in Florida, they do spawn fast, but they also like they come and go, and it's just a different ordeal. But I was down there and I found all these smaller ones on the lower end of the lake. And there's a video of me catching that. Like I have a video. It's on YouTube. I think it's on TikTok. Probably no one understands what I meant by it because I say it in the video. But as I'm fishing for this, I catch a couple of these small ones. So I was just like, I'm just gonna go whatever. And people had already been through there. This is day 2, so everyone had already been through this whole area. So I went through the whole area. Ended up catching I think I had I don't know if I had 4 or 5 or I had whatever, but it didn't matter. They were all small 2-pounders. And I come across this one and I see it. And when I go through these reeds, and there was like this clump of reeds in a circle. And I was like, I just kind of eased over it. I said, hey, don't move. Just chill. And we floated by. I said, that's how I make a $10,000 check right there. So we turn around, flip back up, get up on her, and I start flipping. And I can barely see down there because she was up high when I saw her. She went on a bed. So I was like looking, and I'm like, she's down there, but there's like another one with her. And I'm flipping, and like every once in a while, like you can see her tail go up, and it's starting to go boom. And I'm like, yeah, that was the male. And so like this goes on and on and on. Well, about this time, it's pretty close to the lock. So they were coming through the lock. And about that time, it was like the third group coming through. And I'm like, man, this is getting like how long can I sit there and shake? Because a couple of times I think one of the time I flipped up there and I saw the big one open its mouth. And I'm like, oh, the big one had it. Crap. Because they would both go down and you could just see tails and dark, And so And I was like, 30 minutes go by, and I'm like, I just can't. I'm gonna lose. There's a good chance I'm never going to see the big one bite. Like, I was like, all right, I'm getting back up there. It's a 50-50 chance. I hate doing this, but I got to do it because I'd given it enough time to know that I could never tell. So I flipped up in there and it's like, don't. And I said the hook, it was a big one. And I get it in. And I say in the video, I'm like 50-50. Like, I got lucky, you know?
Yeah.
I might have been able to catch it when I caught the other one. I'm not sure, but it didn't matter. I like you said, I eventually was like, I'm never going to be able to tell which one bites it. So I'm just going to swing.
Yeah, it's all situated. Dude, have you ever had like 2 or 3 females on a bed?
Yeah.
Dude, I caught an 11, a 10, and an 8 off one bed. And the only reason I fished it is I saw like a good 4-pounder male. And I flipped in there for the 4 and 11 ate it. And I was like, oh, I catch the 4. Flip in there
Did
again.
you see the 11?
No.
Oh.
No. Like I saw a 4 and I was like, oh, I'll catch this 4. And then boom, 11, then boom, a 10, and boom, an 8. I'm like, oh my God. Like,
so I've seen 5 on Conroe before. And then we caught a double 9-pounder on this other lake one time. There was 2 of them.
yeah.
And they didn't look like 9-pounders. They looked like 5-pounders. And we catch one of them, and I got it in because he was like, my buddy was like, where'd that one come? You ever be like, where? I'm looking at it, bite it. And I set the hook, and we get it in. He's like, where'd that one come from? I'm like, that was one of them. He was like, I swear that one is not the one. Even though you see it. Yeah. I always say this about sight fishing. A lot of times when you see a fish, you make a prejudgment on what it is. And you go along with it. So like we both agreed that they were like 5-pounders.
Yeah.
Right. And so even when I got it, he got in the boat and he was like, that's like a 9. I'm like, yeah, I know. He's like, all right, that's my next one. I'm like, yeah. So now we knew the next one was going to be another 9-pounder.
But, yeah, it takes a little, and I've been wrong and right on both sides. I've been like, that's a 10, it's a 6. And I've been like, that's a 10, it's a 14. And then like, that's a 13, it's a 10. You know, it's just
we go low.
But you like, I'm pretty spot on, but sometimes I'll get surprised.
Oh, I'll get surprised. Like I've told about the one we were talking about the client. I've told this story before on Toledo Bend where I had to take someone, and same deal. Like, oh, I saw one. I saw it way on up there shallow. And I was like, I just looked up there should not have been up there. And I'm like, oh, there's a big one. Cool. That was the first one we pulled up to. I mean, we just happened to go and like, that was the first one. I swung back around and I'm like, man, we're going to stay way off this fish. I'm not going to screw it up. She can't even see us, right? Like we're so far away. So I bomb up there and I just get it right next to her and she just, I reel in. I'm like, all right, fish for her. And I said, just cast up there. Like you'll eventually, 30 minutes go by, nothing. And I'm like, and I'm watching, I'm like, hey, you got to cast like 6 inches to the right. Hey, you got to cast 3 foot more. And like 30 minutes of the cast never getting there. And then one time he gets it there and she looks down and he pops it and it, 5 feet later, I'm like, no, you got to. Yeah. And eventually he got mad and he was like, I don't think you can catch her. And I'm like, oh, anyways, long story short, I caught her and it went 11:33. And I was like, oh crap. I didn't ever say I just knew it was a big one. I didn't really think how big it was. Yeah. And I was like, well, there you go.
Yeah. But when we stop on them, I usually tell them like, it could be, I think it's 10 over, but it could be 8. I don't who knows? And then, sometimes it's wrong, right? Sometimes it's wrong. Usually I'm right, but I've been fooled a bunch.
This is a lot of the reasons why I have debates with people on sight fishing and off beds and how I can I think in the overall scheme of things, and you'll agree, I'm sure you'll agree with me on this. It's impossible to hurt a lake, even if you catch these fish and bring them to tournaments and they're on beds. Yeah. I don't think people understand. I think people have a very when you say 1 million fish in a lake, I don't think people really understand what 1 million bass in a lake is like. Yeah. And if they think there's most of the lakes that have big ones don't just have one big one. They have thousands of big ones. And people are just very underestimate how many fish are in the lake. And then they look at you catching one big one off of a bed or a couple and think you're hurting the lake. And I'm like, guys, for one, and they're like, man, what if you're out there every day? I'm looking out at the weather right now. It's blowing 25 and raining. You know how many days are like that in the springtime? A bunch. Where like
wind, blowing
there are
30, like
hundreds of thousands of fish every day spawning on bad weather days, and no one's ever messing with them, right? I mean, I don't even want people are just want to complain about sight fishing sometimes and bet, and like they get very narrow minded when we go out there and sight fish and look at the thousands, hundreds of fish we see in a day in the small little part of the area we're at. And people don't see them, so they don't realize they're up there. And we're just passing them by. I'm like, dude, there's fish spawning everywhere.
Yeah.
And no one's ever going to mess with them. Like,
and dude, I think they spawn more than once. I had a fish a couple years ago. I guess it got hit on a dock or maybe in someone's live well. There's a perfect white like square on her forehead. I mean, like, I called her Dottie, dude. She like had a dot right here on her forehead. And I saw her, I'm like, she's like 8-9 pounds. I caught her twice, but she was on like 4 different beds.
Well, and
like huge area, and I saw her like 4 times.
But I want to explain this to people. Like I said, I want to emphasize again that me and you have never talked. So like, you can disagree with me on this, but if a fish is on a bed, a female, and you can catch her, it's because 1,000% she has not dropped her eggs. If she's still there.
Yeah, she's hanging. Oh, yeah. If she's hanging around, yes.
Yeah. So like, even if she's on the bed, they only drop their eggs when they start to spawn. Like when the male and the female start rolling.
Yeah.
That's when she's dropping the eggs in the male, which is, I have caught less than 5 in my lifetime like that.
Yeah. Honestly, if I see him do this,
yeah,
I
roll on. I have stopped on them before, never in a tournament. Or if I stop in a tournament for like 3 minutes just to see if there's a small chance, But 9 times out of 10, if you flip in there, they never pay attention. Or if you flip in there and they split, it's 90% because they were pretty much done. Like I saw like one over like 11 or 12 on Rayburn with her tail out of the water, and she was doing her thing, and I flipped up there, and when it hit, like she took off and never came back ever. And I'm like, yeah, she was probably done. But if they're just I've seen females sit for 4 or 5 days. They're just sitting up there, like they'll sit on a bed at a male, and they haven't dropped their eggs. They're waiting for a male. So like you could catch that. I always tell people, if you can catch her on a bed, she probably hasn't laid her eggs. You can go weigh her in, let her go. She'll go find a bed the next day, like, or whatever. Like, I don't think people realize. I tell people, and they don't want to hear this, but it's actually worse to catch the 2-pounder off the bed that's guarding the bed, and that a big one is like, you don't know that a 10-pounder, this is what people don't think, right? They just see what's in front of them. They can only visualize that you caught a big one. But if a 10-pounder came over there and they didn't know it, and they sat there for whatever, and they did their deal, released all the eggs, and left. And now a 2-pound male sitting on that thing protecting 10-pound genetic eggs, right? And you come across and like, oh, I'm not out there catching big ones like those guys. I just throw my Cinco down the bank and caught 2-pounders. Well, you just caught a 2-pounder protecting 10-pound females' eggs, right? And now as soon as you bring that 2-pounder off, perch go up there and eat those things. That happens all the time. And yet these guys fishing in the springtime are like, you shouldn't catch them off beds. I'm like, man, y'all don't realize what we're doing all this, and it's okay. Our lakes are fine. We're not, we've been doing this from day one, but they only look at it. I always say the same thing about fry garters. You see a little 2-pound male guarding a big old school of fry. Those could be genetic 10-pound fry that it's guarding. And you're like, yeah, it's just a 2-pounder. You catch it, right? And then all of a sudden they get eaten up by perch. What's worse? To me, catching the male that's guarding the 10-pound, it's way worse. But people don't want to look at it that way.
Yeah, and I've seen it where like they're paired up and like the male will be gone and the female will protect. I've seen that like at Ivy with all the carp, dude. It's insane. Like the carp will go and try to eat that, and she'll storm him and hit him and knock scale. It's kind of awesome to see, but she'll storm in and knock scales off, and those are pretty hard to catch. I've Like when they're protecting, pretty hard to catch.
Yeah, because they get kind of keyed in on like live stuff. Like they're very,
Yeah, like
very,
yes, like a white thing. Why would I worry about a white thing when there's
yeah.
20-inch carp's eating my stuff?
I will say that like, and I'm not. This would take 10 hours to talk about, but if you are saying that they stick on a bed, y'all know you can. What about the ones that make huge circles? Yeah, those
Part of the process.
2 to 3 minutes at a time is nothing. Like
Yeah.
if it's going to for 2 or 3 minutes, I'm like, yeah, oh, good.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the ones that go for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like those are the ones that start like messing with your head on what to do. But yeah, I've stuck around for ones that take 20 minutes to come back.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into.
Yeah, you flip and your bait's like in the air, and they're like, "Nope." You're like, how do you see that coming?
And it's a process. I'm just not going to,
Yeah, it's.
See something, I think it probably does happen at night, maybe, because as much as I look at during the day, you rarely see it. Honestly,
yeah, no, I agree too. Yeah,
once
a
a
bow
day?
fisherman told me, like, there's this dude at Choke. We stayed at the lodge together. Anytime I'd see like some big alligator guard, like, hey, there's like 2 or 3 over here. And anytime he saw some sight fish, he'd throw my way too. But I asked him, I was like, how are you seeing him? He goes, oh, dude, they're rolling all over each other and stuff usually. So that kind of tells me, like, dude, if he's seeing more roll on each other, I've only seen like 2 roll here, and he's seeing 2 or 3 every night, then I bet it happens at night more than we think.
Well, so Russell knows a lot of guys, and I knew a guy too, that they go like carp hunt, like bow fishing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk, man, it's amazing that not just during the springtime, but like I don't know if it matters, but I don't know how many times they're like, man, we saw a ton of bass up last night. And it could be like this time of the year, it can be random times of the year. But they definitely see them in the. I've heard a lot of guys say that it's easier to see them spotlighting them at night, sight fish. I've never thought so.
I've never tried, so I've been out in the boat. Like I've been out in the bow fishing boat. Like sometimes like we'll take clients out at night just to go have fun, and I'll see them every now and then. But
we had them back where I used to live, and I went and tried it one time. Like, or I'll be like, we're staying like I've stayed at my buddy's Toledo's house. And we'll go out there, like there'd be a bed right with a fish on it, like right by the dock or something. And I'll go out there with a spotlight going, that doesn't look easy at all. Like it doesn't look like I can see that fish any easier at night.
Yeah. Maybe finding them for fishing them, I'm good. I don't like fishing at night anyway.
I don't like it either.
But
you ever used a flogger in Texas?
I've tried. When I was at Amstead, me and Kurt went to St. Clair one year. Dove.
Kurt Dove?
Yeah, I think it was like the last FLW event where they had co-anglers. I went and fished with them, and like we bought floggers like just in case, so I had one. So I brought it out like in the springtime for largemouth, and like I think if it was a deal, it would have been done already, but it's just not in the cards, I think, for largemouth.
Right.
Smallmouth, it's because, like, dude, you'll look at a smallmouth bed and you'll be like, oh, there's a bed, there's not a fish on it. Then you put the flogger down and it's like clear as day on the bed, and you're like, how did I not see that?
Amstead's like that.
Yeah.
Amstead, what I learned about Amstead is like the deep ones, like the 20-foot beds. I'd get over there, and of course it has to be like, you can have a ripple on most lakes and sea. You can't have a ripple on Amstead and sea. I mean, it has to be glass for you to see 20 foot because you're looking at so many things down there, right? When you're in 3 foot of water, there's nothing around. So you can see 3 foot around water around you and the bed. But in 20 foot, you can see the bed, and that's all you stare at is the bed. And I can't tell you how many times I'll flip. And it's real hard to flip 20 foot of water and make it land on something because
like on reflection. The bed. Oh yeah.
So I'm watching it, and I can't tell you how many times it'll go down there, and you're just trying to focus on the bed, right? So I'm looking down, and I'm like, oh, I landed on it. And then all of a sudden you'll see this fish like swim into view and go down and eat it. And I'm going, And I started realizing that, and there's usually always like a bush or a rock or something. But in 20 foot of water, that depth is like there could be a rock. You see the top of the rock, but you don't realize the rock's like this big, right? Because it's all rock. And then there's a rock that's like 2 foot tall. So the fish could be sitting by that rock. You'll never see it. You know, because you're still 20. And then all of a sudden, you'll see that fish swim into view. And I'm like, man, these fish on Amstead don't sit on their beds a lot. Like they'll sit like right next to it. And the other thing I've seen them on Amstead is if they are on the bed, I can't tell you how many times when I drop a bait to them and it's like 10 foot, they come up to meet it. Yeah. Like that's crazy. Like they'll come up 10 foot to meet it. Sometimes they'll eat it and sometimes they'll come up, meet it, and then follow it back down.
I think that's a depth thing because I learned that. I saw the same thing with smallmouth. I think that's a total depth thing.
Yeah, it's weird.
Like shallow ones, like I've never had, like
never.
Out of all the shallow ones I fish, maybe like every now and then, like maybe one, but like deep ones, that's happened quite a bit.
Well, so I get a lot of these. This is what I'll say. Like, so this question: do you ever use glide baits or swim baits on bedfish? I say zero times. And I say this because, and someone's going to be like, "Well, I caught one." I'm like,
you can catch one doing a lot of stuff, but is it efficient and the best?
Right. Someone's like, "Hey, do you ever throw a jig on a fish?" I'm like, I will never throw a jig on a bedfish ever in my entire life. And they're like, well, I've caught some on it. I'm like, I didn't say you can't catch them on it. But if I can throw a Texas rig with a small little weight, with a little bit of plastic, with a phenomenal hook over a jig, with a weed guard, with a bigger head.
And skirt they can grab.
I'm throwing, like I said, it's not about the bait. It's about what's most efficient. And he said, it's, tournament situation is hard to them not always having a hook in their mouth, 100%. So, yeah, it's just not something I'm going to ever go do.
Yeah, I think a lot of people overthink it too.
They do overthink it.
It's up to the fish pretty much, and what's the best setup and scenario you can get that fish in the boat. And I think that's like with all fishing usually.
Yeah, like that's a different deal. What did this guy say? Okay, so yeah. This is.
Oh yeah.
You can't ever. I'll be honest with you, and it's true. Like you can't ever let your co-angler. So I have let. So the tournament on Toledo I won, there were so many of them, and I talked to my co-angler, and I still know him to this day. I said, "Hey, look, bear with me, but I'm trying to win this thing, right?" And I had a giant lead, anyways. But that was the day I broke down right off the bat. Had to go borrow a boat, so we missed. I didn't get to start fishing until 10:30 or 11. Out of someone else's boat, no troll, like his trolling motor, he didn't charge his batteries. I had to just borrow a boat like that morning after I'd already broke down and got towed back in. Well, anyway, so we're out there, but I told him, I said, hey, look, bear with me. I still memorize where some of these fish are that I haven't caught. So I went and caught them all, so I had a fairly decent bag. And I said, look, I'm going to be on high looking for big ones. There's 2-pounders, there's fish everywhere. I'm just going to flip on. So all I do is I'd flip on fish on high, like on beds and stuff. And when one would bite, I'd shake it off. I'm like, hey, throw right there. Now he only had, as fast as I was going down, he had to make it count. And I said, I'm not stopping. You got to do it. And I said, you're going to miss some, you're going to whatever. But I said, dude, there's hundreds of them. And like throughout the day, I'm like, there's one, I'd shake it off and I'd be on high. I wouldn't even look back. And if he made a good cast on it, he'd pop it, boom, and he'd catch it. And I would slow down when he reeled it in. I'm like, you good? He's like, yeah, keep going, man. And so, and I just be flipping at fish, like looking for big ones. And every once in a while, one would bite, I'm like, throw right there.
Yep.
And so he was doing the same thing. But if I had one bite, it was like almost guaranteed that he would get it to bite. But
I did the same thing with smallmouth at Champlain last year, the final day. Like I was like, I got 17, dude. I need like 3 3/4 and 4 pound. Like I need those. There's a 3. It's all you, and like you get a couple of flips at it. Like
and I was very well. Like I said, it was winning. Like it doesn't matter. I'm always like, hey, you can't let them. You can't stop because then it's like then you start feeling bad, and then they just got to deal.
There it is. If you can get it, cool.
Right.
And throughout the day, boom, he had a limit for like 16 and a half. None of the fish would have helped me, so it doesn't bug me at all.
Yeah, but
And
it's time away from you.
yeah,
That's my only deal is like the
well, that's
time.
what I said. Like I keep going, and he
Yeah,
cast
yeah,
and
yeah.
catch it.
Okay,
Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
never stop on one. I think we stopped on one. Like at the end of the day, you needed like 5. It was like we had 15 minutes left or something like that. But
This is true because, well, it said if anybody disagrees with you on sight fishing, who know? I can't. I don't know if me and him agree on anything. And I don't care. I don't really get worked up over what Randy Blockett does. But sight fishing was the original fishing controversy, and now I love it because it's taking a back seat to live scope, so it's great.
yeah, I call it we called it the original live scope one time.
Yeah.
Like we had those like platforms on our deck, and I was like, look, the original live scope, you know.
When did you start doing the platform?
So I learned my partner Jared Poole with Hill Country Hammer, his dad did it for years on fork and stuff back in like the 80s and 90s.
Oh, okay, that long ago. Okay.
Yeah, so he kind of told us about it, and we just kind of made him bigger and really like dove into it.
Yeah,
You need to come out and see it. You'll be shocked how far.
Well,
You know, but
we had one. We had me and my buddy Jarrett had one when we were just fun fishing, and we just kind of made it, and it was like it's awesome, right? Then we started seeing the ladder thing on Lake Fork, which we just shook our head at.
Ladder's a little sketchy, dude. You hit a stump, go.
Well, sketchy in the fact that like my buddy Jarrett was going over there, and he was like telling me, he was like, Todd, these guys all have ladders and still can't see them. And I was like, yeah, I know. So it doesn't matter. He goes, or they can't catch them. And so then I just was like, I stopped. I'll have a cooler every once in a while for my kids, you know, but for the like, I don't know if I've sat on a motor before. I get like, it's funny too, that a lot of people see me like standing on graphs and stuff and make comments about that. Or I saw a couple of elite guys do it like a couple years ago, and they're like, oh, people were making a big deal about it. And I was like, look at this guy. I'm like, I've been doing that for like 20 years. Yeah. Like I can stand on my trolling motor and graph like, and they're like, man, that's an expensive graph. I'm like, I've owned graphs my whole life. You think I've ever broke one? Like, trust me, it's a graph. It's sitting on the
and people don't realize like this far is standing up, you can see a lot for it makes a difference.
Being tall helps.
Oh, I bet, dude. How tall are you? Like 6 something?
6'3".
Yeah, dude. You and John Barnes need to go sight fish together. Be unstoppable.
Well, yeah, I mean, man, God's pouring down right now. Yeah, it does help for sure. But then there's guys that just can't see them.
Yeah, and that's I with clients, I'm like, you see it? No, I'm like, it's right there. Like, look, you know.
I'm always reading. We're way behind in the comments, but see, like this, I don't. There's one word in there, and I'm glad he's put it. If you read all this, the females might.
Yeah,
might. That's the thing. There's a lot of mights and ifs and all kinds of stuff when it comes to a lot of that subject. I'm just going. I understand. Listen, if there's 100 fish in a pool, and you take a 10-pounder out, you're minus one less 10-pounder. Like, I get it, right? And if you look at it from that point of view, right, it's very easy to say, well, every time you catch a 10-pounder, there's one less 10-pounder in there. Like, I understand that point of view. But what I don't think people like it, and that's very easy to say, right? That's a very easy way to look at something and going, every time you catch one big one, may or may not be, it might not be releasing its eggs, whatever. But we don't live in a pool with 100 fish in it. We live in lakes with so many thousands of fish. I always tell people this. This is my best one. This is my biggest argument for all this stuff. I always ask everyone, this is the best. No one really wants to listen to this. This is real simple. Say there's 1 million fish in the lake. Okay. Right. 365 days of the year, just like there's millions of people in the country, and every day some are born and some die. Right. There's always births and there's always deaths. Well, there's always deaths in fishing. Fish die. If there's 1 million fish, right, in a lake, just by pure numbers, 365 days, how many fish die a day? So there's going to be, if there's 1 million fish, or there's way more than that, right? But say 100,000 of them die that year, and 100,000 of them are born that year, and it keeps it at 1 million, right? That means 100,000 fish died that year. With 365, right, divided by 100,000, that's how many fish die a day from just old age or whatever. Hundreds of fish die every day. Do you see any of them die? You ever just drive around the lake, see hundreds of dead fish everywhere? No. So every day, hundreds, like if someone was like, oh my gosh, someone went out there and caught hundreds of fish and kept them all. Hundreds of fish die every day on a lake, every single day. You don't see them because fish don't float up. They sink. So every day, hundreds of fish die a day. No one gets upset about those fish.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't see them. So it's out of sight, out of mind type deal. But yeah, every day, hundreds of fish die and the lake's fine. And then they get repopulated in the next spring. And you still got 1 million fish in the lake. It's a weird way to think about it. But when you start really thinking like, oh yeah, he's right. Fish die every day. You just don't see them.
Yeah. And then tournament, you got 2-day tournament, 100 boats. That's 500 fish a day. That's 1,000 fish. Some of those are going to die.
Some of those are going to die. And more of them died during the day from natural causes than the tournament.
Yeah. And then like you look at lakes, like when lakes have a decline, it's either like a watercolor deal.
It's always
vegetation deal. It's natural. It's not
always water.
It's quality. Not catching them.
It's know? my only thing to that is this. When you so it's always water quality. I think it's 100% water quality and nothing else. And water quality is based on floods, droughts, whatever it might be. It's still water quality. If water quality goes down and the fish are dying off because of natural causes of something bad happen like that, and you're then catching and keeping a whole bunch of fish, I think that hurts it because it's not normal, right?
Yeah.
But for me, like that's when I'm like, hey man, like you could go to when Toledo Bend was like crushing it, you know, did you go keep 100 a day probably, and you couldn't affect that lake, right? Because it was so good. But as it starts to go down because the floods and the grass spraying, or the grass, most of the grass died because of the flood, but the water quality got bad and the fish started declining. And then you keep those, that's when it's like, okay, now we're not helping it by any means, you know,
definitely.
Because the fish aren't reproducing as well because everything's kind of dying off, you know?
Yeah. And then there's, I can't tell how many fish that spawn deep and we can't see every lake, you know what I mean? So
thousands.
Yeah. Cause if there's that many fish in the lake and I see this many throughout the year, that's like just a fraction of what's happening.
That's just a fraction. And I always tell everyone, I'm like, man, there's so many days we can't go sight fit. Like there's so many days. And like, if the wind blows out of the east, the whole east side of the lake or the west side of the lake.
It can spawn and do everything.
Yeah. It's impossible to go over there. So like, it's a very, very small fraction. And then most of the guys can't go catch them.
Yeah. And it's weird. So this is weird. This is where I like mine gets explode. Like Amstead, dude, last summer was awesome. It kind of sucks now. And it does this a lot because of water level and stuff. But I've lived there so long and fished there so long, like those fish will just appear and it'll be on fire. Yes.
Amstead?
Yes.
Yeah, I would argue against that, but I don't understand that place.
Like I would think, like I swore I was like, dude, they all died, or
they all died,
or that class of fish is gone, and I'd say
that's what it looks like to me. The class of fish is gone.
Yeah, but dude, and then like in 2020, boom, they were all there. We're catching 100 fish a day and 25 plus to 30 plus pound bags every day.
I kind of looked at Amstead though as so. I'm no biologist, but this is what so a guy built this pond, okay? and he stocked it full of F1 tiger bass. This was back in like the 90s. And he had built it, put nothing else in this pond, did the perch thing, then the bass thing. And 2 years later, on year 2, he caught a 6-pounder out of it. Okay. And I was like, all right. Okay. A fish went to 6 pounds in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't know how to, I don't care what a biologist says or anyone says. Like,
that's what happened. Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
Well, I look at like places like OH Ivy, Amstead Falcon and all that. Toledo was like that too. I go, hey, look, and I know for a fact, well, I'll get into that, but when you have a place that's that fertile and it's a water quality deal and it's all for everything's fertile. I mean, it's why you fertilize ponds to make them grow like they do, right? When the water quality is there, I don't know if people understand how fast a fish can grow. I don't even know if I understand it. So like, if you were catching 2-pounders the year before and all of a sudden you're catching all these 6s and you're like, oh, they were always there. I still argue, well, yeah, were they there, but they were just 2-pounders and the next year they're 6-pounders. You're like, well, that's a lot of fish for them to grow from 2 to 6. But when you look at things, what makes more sense that they just grew super fast on these like, and we're talking about lakes that are Amstead, Ivy, Falcon are not like any other lakes in the country. Like
no,
they are growing.
I throw choke in there too.
Like, they can grow giants. Like people are like looking for one fish like this in a lake, and these places have like 100,000 of them that big. Yeah. And you don't get that big because they live longer. They get that big because they grow that fast.
Yeah. Yeah, they eat.
Yeah, so I kind of wonder about that on Amstead, that like, were they always there, or did they just grow to that size really quick because the lake's in that good of a shape?
Yeah, I mean, it could be that. Like, that makes total sense because like it's gone from sucking to awesome. But that's another deal. It's not like we're catching 2s and 6s. It's like sucking bad, and then boom, out of nowhere, it'll be awesome.
Amstead too has like
that depth, and
yeah, I mean
that's what throws a yeah, like you can't see them because they're down there eating something that we don't know, like a prawn or crawfish that go deep, or those like other minnows. Yeah,
and the grass can grow in like 25, 20. I mean, it can have some grass that's insane deep.
Yeah,
I don't know. Did I even have good friends of mine? I didn't, but they was fun. Do you think, have you ever really, I've heard a lot about this. I have really good friends that can sight fish. Like there's like 3 or 4 of us and we all sight fish. None of us have ever seen it, but we hear about this like fall spawn deal.
Dude, I would say no. Like straight up, I would
have people listen.
Yeah,
I better go right to the comments because I'm with you. I'm saying, dude, I fish so shallow in the fall so much.
I've never seen it.
But I have friends, good friends of mine, that swear. I mean, I hope one of them is not watching. Swears by it, and I trust him with my life. But I'm going, how have I never seen it? And I've been fishing for 20-something years, and that's all I do is look in the water. And I've never seen it. Y'all talk about, y'all see it all the time.
Yeah, I call total BS, dude.
I'm not saying this guy's saying that.
Yeah. And you might, dude, but you know how they get in the fall? They get pretty like not territorial, but they'll hang out in an area for a while, and that could be because of bluegill beds.
I agree.
It could be, it could be that like their food source is there, but on a bed, I've never seen it. But their tail's red. I was like, well, they're in 6 inches of water. Or you're reeling it in. You're reeling it in, and it hits his tail on a branch or a log, and it's red now. Like, I don't.
What is this? Dude, for like, hey.
I still tie up to trees. I mean,
I was going to say.
I still tie up to trees.
So we used to have a system where we had 2 anchors.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to have the push pole and the 2 anchors on ropes, and one anchor would just sit in the front of the boat, and then the other anchor sat in the rod in the back box, and we drop them over on the side. Man, do you know how long we used to sit to like get it positioned?
Oh, I bet.
And like and we'd have to get on the right side of the wind where we tried to block the wind. Oh my gosh, man.
Yeah. Dude, I've never done this, but you saw it on bat. Did you ever like spray like soap or oil on top of the water?
Nah.
I know people ask me that all the time, and I'm
Well,
like,
for the
I don't.
pollen deal.
Yeah, I could see that, but I've never really dealt with pollen like
Yeah,
too much, you know.
yeah, we get some pollen up here. It helps. It helps, but like if it's bad pollen, it works for like a minute or two.
Yeah.
You know, what is this guy talking about? Silver Sun? Yeah, Silver Sunrise has been the best sight fishing glasses forever.
Changed my mind. I like amphibious. We use amphibious.
Well, yeah, but it's still the Silver
I think
Sun.
it's
I
fine.
guess he's talking
Yeah.
about Silver Sunrise. Yeah,
Just
I
lens
don't.
color.
I haven't
Yeah.
gone fishing without Costa Silver Sunrise glasses since they. Me and Russell were the first ones in the country to ever use them, and since that day, I've never been on the lake without Silver Sunrises, no matter what time of the year. I don't even like order glasses from Coastal without Silver Sun. Like they're all. I might have a couple that aren't Silver Sunrise, but that's all I do.
Yeah.
I'm see, like we'll get into like a lot of the stuff about um we look at it differently. Like, so I know a lot of people say like Texas has a better stocking program and better this
100%.
and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm always the one that sits there and says everything about Louisiana is done horrible. And it's just the way they look at stuff. And like I'm not over here, like I'm not in Louisiana fishing their lake, so do what you want to, disagree with me, whatever.
Yeah.
But dude, that mindset that they have, and not all, like some of my best friends are from Louisiana. They hate it. They hate, like there's so many guys from Louisiana that absolutely despise the way people like still treat their fisheries over there. And they just and they wonder, and it's weird too, because it'll be the same guys complaining that fishing's horrible, and they're out there like, and trust me, if we live next to the state, y'all just don't understand. We have been out there with our own eyes, seeing. We've talked to game wardens. Game wardens have rolled up on people like walking the bank or like wading in the water with a stringer, and they cut the stringer, and there'll be 100 bass on that stringer.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like I'm just like, there's no need for that. So I mean, y'all don't understand we're not talking about keeping 5 a day. That they're going out there like morning, and it's just like the guys from Louisiana talk about it because they post a lot of it on Facebook and stuff. They talk about how it's not even food thing. It's like a look at me thing.
Yeah.
It's a weird mindset for some of them. And
we're right next door in like the same climate, and like one's terrible and one's thriving.
Yeah, you can literally be on one side of the lake on Toledo Bend, and one. I mean, I don't want to say that's why. Like anyone will agree that Texas side is way better than Louisiana side. I'm not saying it has anything to do with that. We also have the better creeks, but I'm just telling you, a lot of guys from Louisiana drive to the Texas side and fish and then go back over there. But I mean, it's just like a mindset over there.
Yeah, and you've been all over the country too. Like,
well, I mean, look at these
like
guys.
We're lucky Texas just stocks everything, and it's awesome. Like we're very lucky on that.
Someone said that, and I never thought about this. Someone said we don't really stock for let me get this right. That we don't really stock for numbers. Like, so if we go stock a lake, we're not stocking to increase the numbers of the lake. We're stocking to increase like the quality of the fish.
The genetics.
Yeah, the genetics. I never really thought about that. Because I think their comment was, and when he said it, it kind of makes sense to me that, hey, we're doing this because it's kind of like my old philosophy of like, how many fish would you have to stock to increase the numbers?
Yeah, a lot.
Because you think
more than we do. Yeah.
Well, you think like 150,000 is a lot of fish, but then you look at it and go, well, is it really? I mean, because they're not all going to live. So if you look at certain lakes and you stocked 150,000, you're like, oh, that's a lot. I don't know if it really is.
Yeah.
Because I don't think people really know how many fish are in the lake. I just don't think people have any clue. I don't
Yeah.
think we even know.
Yeah. And then there's some places like up north that they don't stock, they don't do anything, and those things thrive.
Oh yeah, I know.
You know what I mean? It's just. But I agree with that statement. We're stocking for quality, not quantity, for sure.
These guys are.
I haven't even read them.
I was just like I said. I mean, it's that tournament was in the middle of March. So there's a bunch of pollen. I keep it there. I just don't you know. Oh, I'm gonna have to put someone in timeout. Oh, now this.
Oh, that's a completely different. Yeah, I've caught them in mid-June, like mid-June on a bed, plain as day, like.
Todd Castleline, you need moderators. I got a moderator. Man, I'm not going to put him in timeout yet. Hold on. This guy. Where was it? Okay, so hold on, I'll get back. So listen, Costa makes, they were the first ones to ever have silver sunrise. So that's all you got to do is silver sunrise lenses. So all you got to do. They're yellow lenses. They don't look that yellow, but they're, there's another guy telling me, So I'm way back down on. Okay, so yeah. My best friend, he still bothers him today because he says, how can in the fall I can see one this big and one this big? And like, what year was that spawned at?
Oh yeah.
And well, I know, and he always is like, how come I always see, and I started thinking like, well, man, in Texas, I think it's different in a lot of places. And maybe that's what's cool about Texas. Florida's probably the same way. I don't know if we have that many classes of fish. I used to say we do, but if a fish can spawn in February and a bunch of them can spawn in May, that's 3 months. So you can have one that's 4 inches long and an 8-inch long fish, and they're still the same. But then those fish grow at different rates. And so one of them's a 2.5 pounder, one's a 1 3/4. And then next thing you know, that one's a 4 and this was a 2.5.
Yeah.
But it's still genetics. The same year fish.
Yeah. It's just genetics. And like, because I see them in the fall that are tiny too. And I'm like, man, they could have spawned in early June and not been, or mid-June deep that we can't see, and come up to, 3 months later, they're this big. I think that kind of answers the question of little guys in the fall and stuff.
Okay, I'm gonna address this guy one time. The only so like on this, and he doesn't really make me mad, but I want to show you this one guy real quick. So negative, negative, negative,
yeah,
negative, 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 negative. And the problem is people get upset, right? Like they're all like, everyone at this is trying to have a good, like, whatever, entertainment, learning. And, that's part of the problem is you get guys that,
Yeah, dude.
Right,
I mean, you'll have that. Like,
he does it all the time.
Yeah, no, I've watched your stuff. I've seen this stuff before, but I mean, it's all good. Like, I made a rule, like in high school, put nothing negative out there on the internet.
Well, I don't like.
You
I
know,
don't mind you disagreeing with us. Like I said, you can disagree. I'm not saying. I don't. The only things we've said that like it's like I'm gonna go against you on the sight fishing stuff, right? Like we talk sight fishing, and you start bringing up. I'm gonna have strong opinions on sight fishing because I think I've earned it, right?
yeah, and not a lot of people like, dude. We do this for a living. Not many people do this for a living and are on the water as much as we are and see what we
Right.
see.
But
Like,
I
just
still.
facts.
But if you sit there and say, "Hey, Amstead, I think they're always there," and if I said, "Well, maybe they're not, maybe they grow into it," I'm
Yeah,
just giving you an option. But
and
I
that's
don't.
honestly, I never thought about that option. That's a
Right,
good
but I
one,
have
but
zero clue if that's true or not. Like
yeah, same.
I just try to go off of like common sense type stuff.
Yeah, and what you've
And
seen, what
so,
you experience over the
right.
life, like, makes sense.
Yeah. So like, but so I always get upset. Like listen, I really don't get upset about any of these people in the comments.
No,
Like I really don't. Like you think I really care?
no.
But I do. It does. What's worse, that guy doesn't bother me at all. He doesn't bring anything to the table though, and that's the problem. Like you can bring something that disagrees with me and make a good point and bring it to the table, man. I'm all ears, and I'll have a debate with you. I'll talk about it. But when you're just up there, if you notice, they're all just negative, random, nothing. Like they don't mean anything. And I'm like, all right, well then I don't mind it. But then once people in the comments start freaking going, all right, that's enough, because people on this channel watching this, if you watch the comments, they start talking to each other and they have their own little like conversations back and forth. And like I'm reading them a lot of times because I'm like, it's they're having their own like, hey, you're up here in this part of the world, and they start talking like it's great for them all.
Yeah,
But some of these other when you start adding nothing in, if you notice, I put him in timeout.
yeah. Well, dude, I've noticed like on the internet, like for every, it's like anything else. For every good comment, you get like 4 bad ones, or vice versa. Like there's
Well,
always going to be somebody.
well, like this guy said, like, man, most of the people on this, it is a community. Like most of these guys are like listening. Like I said, they're on here. I mean, you just listen to all these guys, like read all the comments. They're all just trying to, do like just learn stuff, read stuff.
Yeah, and that's what that's what I do.
That's what we're all up here doing anyway.
Yeah, learning and who knows if someone's right or wrong. It's just
Right.
life experience, man.
Oh, Ryan. I will I will say that
Oh yeah, both different fish.
yeah,
man.
okay.
I mean, straight up, it's just it's that fish. That's
That fish.
all it is. That fish, man.
I will. Which one would you go? Which one will? Okay. You don't have to answer. Which one would you go? Are you going to start off with first? Which one would you do? Which one would you do last? There's certain things that I
Dude,
know.
it's hard. It's hard to do because, like,
let me ask you this. Listen to this.
Situation.
Okay, so there are obviously ways to approach a fish.
Mm-hmm.
There are some ways that are more aggressive than others. Okay. So I try not to go that route right off the bat. Like I try to go the least aggressive.
Yes.
Do you think which one's more aggressive, the head or tail?
I think tail
is more aggressive.
I think tail.
Yeah,
straight up.
I do too.
Because like they can see it like with their head and stuff, but like tail, they like it's like someone scares you. Like you see someone coming at you, easing into you, cool. But if someone bumps you on the shoulder behind you and you had no idea that were there, it's gonna scare the piss out of you.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I'm now okay, Ryan. Tell me which one. Which one do you like? Ryan was if you don't know, that's Andrew's old fishing partner. He fishes.
Oh, cool.
He fishes down there a lot. He fishes choke a lot. He's down there saltwater fishing a lot too, but he fishes a lot of that stuff. So
yeah, dude, I would say head's easy and it depends how they're set up. Sometimes they're looking at the bed, sometimes they're on the bed.
Yeah.
So it just kind of
All right, so when you're not sight fishing on those lakes, are y'all still kind of out there for like big ones?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. Like, so we call it
Because you
chase the.
live on big, like, so where do you guide? Where do y'all guide? What
So
lake?
we're located on LBJ in Kingsland,
Okay.
and we guide here, all through the year because we got like 3 or 4 of us that are here. So we guide year round in the area. But what we kind of do this chase the bite deal is like we go to Ivy when they're heavy spawning. I go to New York in the summer when it's really good. So we try to chase big ones. It's called chase
Uh-huh.
the bite. So, we guide here, Choke Canyon, uh, Ivy, go up north in the summer. Sometimes if there's a bite like a lake in East Texas, I'll call like my A team, my clients that have been with me forever. I'm like, hey, you want to go do this? And I'll spend 10 days there guiding. And usually, like, I won't post those and stuff. I'll just kind of, it's for them, not us, kind of thing.
Right.
But pretty much ever. It's funny. I live on OBJ and I got here the least.
Yeah, like LBJ seems like it's probably the hardest one to
Oh,
guide.
yes, it is. It's hard. It's really hard to like take people that aren't fishermen and like, hey, throw by that dock. You're gonna get hung up in the dock trees. It's very difficult.
Well, we don't have like, luckily the lakes around here we don't have problems like this. So I don't have I rarely run into wakeboard problems like skiers. Like,
Oh yeah, dude. Summertime, we
I
guide
know, but
half day in the
Rayburn,
morning and at night. That's
yeah,
it. During the day, ain't happening.
yeah. So like we don't have like I forget like when you live on Rayburn and Toledo, you don't deal with boat dock owners ever,
Mm.
and you don't deal with like fisher like the only people
Traffic.
you deal with are fishermen. No
Yeah.
one else bothers you.
Yeah.
You know,
Same at Amstead. Like, dude, you had
yeah.
a lake to yourself all the time. But here,
All
it's like
that's
it
a big,
is.
yeah, big
Yeah.
time Amstead.
Yeah.
You can go out there now. I don't stay out there. Starts getting close to dark. I kind of start heading on in.
Yeah. Yeah. Amstead, dude. Falcon. Yeah. Amstead. I've
Well,
never
I just
seen or
know
heard
that
a
it's so
problem.
big. There's nothing like no one else is out there.
Oh yeah, dude. Like I broke. Like you have
Yeah, that's what I'm
people that
saying.
I've gotten calls to go get them.
I'm not worried
all the
about
time.
like so when all that stuff was going down over that, I was always like, and I don't blame my wife, like no one knew. And they were like, "Hey, what do you think?" I'm like, I've never trying to think. I've never even once on Amstead been, but Amstead's built different, but I've never once even like I mean I'm aware of my surroundings on Amstead, but never have I been like nervous.
We got to get out of here. No, never.
Falcon, yes.
Yeah, I've heard that on. But then, like, dude, I've talked to Matt, Reed, and he's like, man, I've never really had a
No,
problem. He's there a lot. Yeah.
I just said I pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been on that lake when it got high, and I got back in some areas where like house like just saying, I've gotten back in some woods and like when it was like 30-foot high, I was back in some places I probably shouldn't have been. And I'm not saying I shouldn't have been, but no, I mean, no, I've talked to Speedy and some of those guys. I mean, they've all had like a little, maybe not now, but they all ran into like a little
something.
Yeah, a little something.
Yeah.
But it was always, it was when big tournaments go on, no big deal. But those guys put out those nets and they're like,
Oh yeah,
and you run
yeah.
into one
I've
because
heard that. Yeah.
they're not marked. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and it, you're just like, you get it, like you're kind of tearing up their net, even though I guess it's legal, but it's not. I don't know people if understand those nets out there. Like there's almost zero markings and they're that far underneath the water.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, and it's crazy. I've actually talked to the dude at AMSA. He spoke pretty good English. He told me, he's like, dude, we catch carp, and they put their stuff out on Amstead. Like
Did they what?
They put their stuff a little deeper on Amstead.
Oh, really?
Nets. Dude, out of all my years, I've seen 3 nets shallow, and that's kind of in the springtime when the carp are up.
On what lake?
On Amstead. The past,
Yeah,
like,
I don't
10 years.
I don't see them at Amps. Ooh. Yeah, I've seen them in not as many, but I've seen some. I've seen some in like Zorro, and I've seen some in Burrow.
Yeah, I've seen them, but like not to like not like Falcon, where you're just
No, Falcon's
it's unreal, dude,
when
and
you
they don't
hit
mark
one,
them.
yeah, when you hit one or whatever, or like you own, like I've seen one where I'm like, oh my gosh, and I'll turn the motor off and like trim it all the way up and just glide over it.
Yeah,
And how you even see it's incredible. I mean,
yeah.
I'm just well, I mean, so like Russell has to deal with them all the time, the wakeboard boats. I don't
Oh yeah, it's
well, he has to deal with the boats in general over there. It's like Lewis. I've been on so like I've witnessed the Louisville one. Louisville's bad. Texoma can get bad. Texoma and Louisville. No, I'd say Texoma's the worst one about hitting the freaking rogue wave.
dude. When that one day event happened, I threw my co-angler in my lap.
Did
Like
you?
I was running. I did not see it, dude. I hit it, and he like I felt terrible, but I smoked one pretty good on Texoma.
People don't. So like, it happens when it's well. That day was it blowing that day? It blew a little bit.
Yeah, but I was in
Calm water.
like yes, I was running in
So
calm water. Like did not see it.
I don't. It's very hard to explain, but you wouldn't think it. But when one of those, if some guys don't know what we're talking about, if you get on a dead calm day and it's calm, like the calmer, the worse it is, and you get not a wakeboard boat, you can see those
A
like
yacht.
a big boat, like
Yacht.
a yacht,
And
it's already
there's no
gone
cap.
past.
Yeah,
and
there's
you're
no
5
cap. It's
minutes
just a
behind it,
roller.
and they're just like this,
Mhm.
right? So like when you're looking at it, it's calm water, but by the time you hit it, and it's so big, and like if you're going 6, I mean, you can't come off of it. You can a little bit by the time you see it, because usually there's like a first wave, like
Yeah.
a smaller little indentation before the next one. And man, it's like, woo. I've heard of it bad for some people.
Yeah, dude, I've heard, broken stuff thrown out of the boat. And
Yeah, throw people out for sure.
Yeah, dude. And then, dude, I've had it where like out here on OBJ, I'll be running and I'll see it last second and just tense up and you'll ski right over it like nothing happened. Just a luck deal,
I don't know why I didn't even bring Lake of the Ozarks. The only reason I didn't bring Lake of the Ozarks, I didn't bring Lake of the Ozarks up in that situation, but in general, Lake of the Ozarks blows every other lake in the country away. It's not even close.
I've never been there that time of year, but actually, me and Kurt talked about doing a camp there, like in the summer. But we were like, man, he said like traffic's too much.
So Casey Scanlon and my other buddy live up there, and I was asking them some stuff because they can guide. You can go out there and fish on Lake of the Ozarks in the middle of the day, but you can't like go out. Like you have to like fish in a creek or something. They have to like be somewhere. But they don't have any tournaments. All their tournaments are at night or whatever, and it's like that. I mean, if it's a nice, doesn't even have to be a nice weather day. When we were there in the fall, it hadn't gotten cold enough yet, and so God, it was nightmare getting back, and like it was not. And they'll even say like, "Oh, that's great," and I'm like that. Dude, it would take me an hour to get back, and my boat's just freaking gone through heck. And it's crazy. And they're everywhere. Like, oh, it's amazing. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, no, it gets like that out here, man. It's wild, but you just smart and don't go fish.
Yeah, I'm glad we don't have that. Like that never happens on these lakes. Like Rayburn, like it's never an issue ever.
Yeah.
I mean, it can get bad from the wind, obviously, because they're big. Like today was horrible. This whole week is turning into be. I wanted to go one day this week, and I just don't know if I'm gonna go deal with it. You're off. Let me ask you this: you're off limits from Rayburn.
Mm-hmm.
Are you off limits from information?
Yeah.
So I can't talk about Rayburn, which I haven't spoke about. Rayburn.
I don't know if this is public, so I don't know, but I don't want to get in the gray area.
Well, we talked about that one time.
I don't
I don't know who. I think I was talking to Matt Steffen, and I was going, "This is public," but either way, like I don't even
want to deal with it. Yeah, I don't even want to.
Yeah. So I didn't know. I hadn't read the rules on y'all's because I'm not fishing it.
Yeah.
So that it went off limits when, like fishing wise, the 4th.
No, it's supposed to be what am I counting? The 6th. It's supposed
Yep.
to be the 6th, but that BFL was that day. So in this tournament, we're 29 days off
So
limits
could you
instead
have
of
fished the
30.
BFL?
Yes.
Okay, and then so the 7th was the first. So that
Mhm.
Sunday was off limits. So
Yeah,
yesterday.
Sunday at midnight. Yeah.
Okay. And that
But
shows you how we haven't talked about it.
yeah, exactly.
And no one's even luckily no one really ever calls me for any of that stuff. I've
Yeah.
had in the past,
Well,
but
dude, honestly, like what I've learned, like especially with information, the older I get, it's like, man, I'm you kind of know what you want to do and go do. You know your strengths. It's basically like if you do get information from somebody now, it's like lake level or like
yeah,
what
but
you know.
man, that's not
But
that's not
some dudes are
how
yeah, some dudes are different. I've seen, dude. I got like some lakes around here. A tournament goes on, and I get blown up. I'm like, I don't.
I, I wanted I text Zona today too. I was gonna ask. I don't know if he'll agree to this. It's not bad, and I'm not going to call out anyone by names, because if I asked him this question, I know his head's going to start spinning. Um, but I was going to be like, "Hey, man, what is your?" I have my thoughts, but what is your thoughts? And I'm not you. I'm going to ask Zone, like, what's your
Yeah,
thoughts on like? We all know there's some guys that know more than others, but we all know guys who get like info. And I understand it's within the rules, whatever. But I'm older now, and I've always thought like this. Like my respect factor for people varies. So, like, I don't care if you've won 20 tournaments or come in second 20 times, right? I might respect you way more for the guy that came in second than the guy who won, because I know how the guy who won. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude. Like, if we'd have gotten any of that information, a lot of guys could have won. So I look at guys on how they fish, based on how they can on I just know how they get there, right? I know the
yeah,
process of them getting there. I was gonna ask Zona what he thought about that and about him specifically, because some guys say they don't care. I think some of the guys that say they don't care are the guys that get info. Because I think any of the guys that don't get info and do it the right way, deep down they kind of like they do care, right?
yeah,
Now I don't care if someone gets it or not. I just probably the only part that bothers me is when they get it and they do good. And I'll be honest with you, like this is like deep down, there's a part of me when other people are like, man, that guy can fish. And I'm like, yeah, I guess. And I just keep my mouth shut and move on, because I'm like, I guess he can. I don't know. I know he can get good info that allows him to catch fish, but I don't know if he can. Like, I see as a guy who may come in like 8th place and does something really awesome. And I'm like, that guy didn't get no info. That's impressive. Like,
yeah,
when I hear about certain guys doing certain things, I know for a fact it is no info and it's just them like killing it. And I'm like, that's impressive to me. So
yeah.
I was wondering about that, because I mean, like you said, as you get older, I've already seen from you, you do things like what you want to go do, but you're on the water a bunch. So like most of those guys that are like that do that way.
Yeah, and like everyone has a group of dudes that you
Yeah.
like. Is that not info?
I um
I would say no
Me and
because
you,
like
okay.
they're your
So
like we don't talk about like we kind of
that's
do,
what
but not like
I don't consider
yeah,
that this. So I fished LBJ a couple times. I've never called you.
yeah,
You never called me about Rayburn.
yeah,
Um, we talk about fishing stuff, but not like I kind of consider of like if I called you on LBJ and could be like, hey, give me your best docks and like give me like some brush piles, right?
yeah.
Never done that in my life, nor will I.
No,
Um,
that's
and I probably would never call you about. I mean, I just don't call people about stuff like that. Like the first time I ever went to LBJ, I finished second with me and Phil Marks. I literally had no idea it was a bass champs too. I couldn't even practice. So like
yeah,
it's the first time I'd ever seen the lake, and I was idling around up the river channel up north in the pitch black with Phil Marks. I'm like, Phil, and we're trying not to, like, I almost ran into buoys. We were just island. It's dark, trying to
Yeah.
get to a spot because it was a trailer deal. So like, and we came in second. I couldn't even. It would have taken me a while to figure out where I was again. And then the next time I went there, it was me and Kelly, and we fished the whole other end of the lake. We didn't even go up there. But I mean, I think that stuff's different. Us talking about like fishing stuff as opposed to like, I kind of consider information like, I don't know what, like, give me places to catch fish.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've done both where it's like going somewhere, your boy fishes there all the time, like good, you're fishing together, tournament, he gives you stuff and you give whatever. But like to call somebody you rarely know, barely know, and ask to give up the juice, it's like that usually doesn't happen.
I can't believe it works for people.
Yeah,
but it does.
Yeah, well, some dudes can get this and go a mile, but some dudes can.
I think they're getting a lot.
Well, yeah, but well, that's what I'm saying. And some dudes can get a lot and not capitalize on it either.
True.
I think it can go, but it just depends on the person, and I think it depends on the fishery too.
It definitely depends on the fishery, but I will say like Rayburn's a bad example of I don't really want to get into that. No one. I don't know if anyone gets info on Rayburn and does good from it. What I would say is what people do good from Rayburn is hole jumping.
Yeah.
And there's a couple guys doing it, and it's semi well known. Like I haven't that there's always a couple guys that are really known for it. They do good. They do good. And I mean, they do good because like, and it's very easy to tell, right? I mean, I saw it last year happen when a guy did good in a Toyota event.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I knew where, like, I wouldn't say everyone knew where he was fishing by any means, but I mean, you know, there's certain people I know, like they kind of fish certain areas, whatever. And, you know, I don't have run-ins with anyone in the sense of like, in all my 20 years on Rayburn, no one's ever called me out for like fishing a spot.
Dude, yeah. Same.
Now I've got into it with people for like rolling up on me and stuff like that, but I've never in all my years someone go, man, I won the tournament here last week. Never. I've never had that happen.
Yeah. No.
This guy has it happen a lot, and this guy didn't win. This other guy didn't win, but he smashed him the final day. And the next tournament, the next week, practice, like this other guy's sitting there in the dark, sitting on it.
Yeah.
And then wants to be like, you know, whatever. So it is, you know.
Yeah. And I think like when you get to a certain like traveling dude, I don't think that really like most of the people are on the same level you are unless they're local.
Man, there's a comment. I'm not even going to click on it. But nice job. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, the whole.
Hey, I'm working on. We're looking at houses, dude. So, I get it. Hold on. Let me read this thing. What if they send their buddy out, the guy, then the buddy? Yeah. Like I think, dude. Let me tell you something. There's all kinds of crazy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That happens, that they get around like stupid stuff. I remember this right here. So Albert quit fishing because of that BS. I think he did a little bit too.
Oh yeah, I heard about all that.
Yeah. Here's one thing. I want to get into this. I was going to save, and I'm going to still save it for Andrew. I can't say what I want to say without Andrew on, because I want his feedback and comments. But like, my daughter last night was looking, and I'm gonna have to repeat this when Andrew gets on. But my daughter last night was looking through. She was like Googling stuff next to me, and she Googled my name, and she was like, "Dad, what's this about?" And I'm like, I don't know, and like random, like I'm on YouTube, so like videos and stupid stuff comes on.
Yeah.
And there was this other thing that was come up. I'm like, what is that about? And it was like another, wasn't a podcast, it was a forum, whatever. And it got talking about this other, I guess they brought up something that we were talking about. And I got to reading it, and then I read the comments, and and this is why I don't pay attention to these people. That like the comments about this were so bad. But the problem is they're bad because people don't know. Okay. And they don't know, like when I bring up something, rarely do I bring it up as like hearsay. Like, oh, one person told me that. No, it's like usually when I bring something up, it's because I've had like 20 people comment on the same thing and they've told me exact experiences. And then I kind of halfway saw it and remember it. I'm like, oh, yeah. Right. So it's this knowledge we have. Like our fishing community is kind of small.
Oh, yeah.
And for the most part, a lot of us keep quiet about the stuff that we see. Right. Because there's no, like, hole jumping's not illegal. Right.
No, but dude, there's integrity. You have to have integrity. I
understand that. I agree with you, but it's not illegal. So like you're calling someone out, and I'm quick not to ever call someone out on that. I know it happens. I see it happen. Like it's bad when I always say there's spots on the lake. Like I can go fish spots on the lake, certain areas for like a year and never see anyone.
Yeah.
And I keep it hidden, or I keep it like I'm real cautious about when I fish them, right? Rarely you'll never see them in practice, even in turn, whatever, doesn't matter. And then all of a sudden, like I do good. Like this happened to me in a BFL. That's why I did not fish this past weekend. I almost will never fish BFLs anymore because of this. And it's kind of a little bit about what Albert was saying. Like someone asked me, like, why won't you fish it? And I'm like, the money's not really there.
Yeah, to give up good stuff.
To give up stuff.
Yeah,
and then I've got
with a co-angler.
Yeah, and I've got bass champs, and I've got the Brandon Belt coming up. And I was like, man, because I just did good in the media bass, but I fished it by myself. There weren't a lot of people out there, whatever. I'm not really even too worried about the co-angler.
That's like just depends.
Yeah, most you never know what you're going to get, but most co-anglers are pretty cool. I just did. I made some videos on co-anglers that I'm going to release over the next 2 days.
And they usually don't have boats. That's why they're fishing as a co-angler.
Yeah, but most of them are cool. Most of them don't. Yeah. Like I've been burned by a couple of them, but over the years, mainly I haven't been.
Yeah.
But it only takes one to get burned by.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I was fishing this BFL, and it was before a tour event, right? And I wasn't fishing the tour, and I got in this BFL. And there's people all around me, and everyone's fishing, everyone's minding their own business. And I see this boat driving by, right? And it's on high, and he probably sees a bunch of boats. You can tell. So he shut it down. And he shuts it down. And when he does, and I already knew who he was. He's a wrap boat, and I'm like, but I'm in an unwrapped boat, hoodie on, like it's cold outside. No one knows it's me. And they stop where they stop. Now, granted, where you're fishing, right?
Yeah, you can tell when someone is coming or like, yeah.
We're on this giant flat, and he stops in the middle of nothing on the flat.
Yeah.
And he crosses this drain in a straight line that's way far away, and he just like trolls directly to me. Now, there's boats around, and you can tell they're fishing like drop-offs and things, and he's just whatever. Well, I'm not catching them great, but I catch some. And then he gets close enough to where, like, he's not in the tournament. Everyone else is in the BFL fit. And I bomb one at him. And it hits. And I stare at him. And he looks at me. And then I think he realized who it was. And I was like, yeah, caught you, dude. Caught you.
Yeah.
And so he's not very smart either. Because he gets back, tells people that he found one of my spots, and he told some guys that know me. He also fished there in the tour and caught him that first day on it. Since that spot, another guy, I know he freaking totally jacked it from me, right? And
Yeah.
I wasn't fishing the tour. I'm not complaining about that. I just kind of like, you know, pros. That's why I have that's how I have a hard time calling certain guys pros,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm like, is that a pro? Is that what fishing is? Like,
Yeah.
am I supposed to look up to someone who does that, who can't go find fish on his own? I know, like, it's a little bit different if you're fishing around and you're fishing down a bank or you're fishing and a guy pulls up on you and starts catching fish, and you're like, well, crap, man. Like, you know, if I'm out there goofing around fishing and a guy in a BFL comes up and starts catching them 150 yards from me, you know, that's a little bit different. There's a big difference between driving around, seeing a bunch of boats, and then like going
in.
right
Yeah.
up to someone, not really fishing. Like, if you're already fishing around, like, what am I not supposed to fish that spot now that I kind of like? I get that. Like, I give leeway to people, right?
Oh yeah.
But there's a big difference between you out there in the middle of the lake and the tour's going on, and a guy, like, a lot of guys talked about this, that they see a guy running down the lake, and like all of a sudden, like, you're out in the middle of the lake and he all of a sudden like veers towards you, runs at you for like 20 seconds, and then goes off, right? Well, he was formulating where you were, right? Hey, okay, I get it. You know, like, would I do that? No, but like, I know the guy that was fishing, and he told me who it was because he saw the rat boat. And so these guys just think that like this stuff doesn't get around. So that guy told me who it was. I told who that guy was, and then everyone knew who these people were. And they're like, oh yeah, man, I had the same. Every time this stuff happens, you have multiple guys call out the same people. Like, I live on Rayburn, and I have all these guys on Rayburn. You never hear it about. You have all these great fishermen on Rayburn. You never hear that about. Then you got this other select group that, like, that's all you hear. And once I hear it multiple times, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, do you remember we had a run-in, like, it was a Toyota. It was the second one at Rayburn in like May. There's like a shad spawn going on. And day 2, I roll up to a point, no one's on. You were there way in the back, and I'm fishing an area, and we meet each other, and I realize, like, oh, what's up, dude? We start talking, and you were like in contention for AOY. I think it was like 2021 or something. And I think you're in the top 5 in the tournament too. And I was just trying to like do good to make the championship. And I was like, yo, like, you need me to leave because you might win this thing and get AOY. And you're like, no, dude, like, catch your fish. I saw you caught a 3-pounder or whatever. Like, catch your fish and we're good. And that's another deal. No one communicates anymore. People just assume and be mad.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm real cautious about the hole jumping thing because
sometimes you just find the same fish.
Yeah.
Like, straight up.
Like, and there's all, like I said, it has to be. I have to kind of really know. Like, I have to like know. You know what I'm saying? And it has to be like if you're just driving by me, like, I'm not sitting there paying attention to you most of the time. Like, I don't really pay attention. I made this one big video one time, and people thought I was like over dramatic about it. And I was like, y'all can say what you want, but when I drive down the lake and I see a boat off in the distance, I try to like almost weave away from people. Cause like, I don't want to know. Like, if I find something, I don't want to know if you've been on it. Cause I'm the opposite. Like, that one guy I was talking about earlier on, I said, man, there was a guy, a lot of people didn't know he was fishing there, but I kind of had seen him. And dude, I fished that spot all the time, but I hadn't really in a while, and he was catching them on it. And I'm like, oh crap. Like, now I can't go there for a while. Like, that's the way we think. It's some guys are like, oh, he caught him there, man. I fished that spot all the time. I'm going there next week. No. I'm like, crap. I wish I hadn't seen you. Like, I don't want to know you're there. You know, because that's why I go practicing so much in the middle of the week, you know, to where no one's out there. I don't want to see anybody. It's really not even for people seeing me. I don't want to see you. Because like, I don't want to have to in my head go, I know that spot, but I don't want that ever coming back on me. That's just the way I think. Rayburn's too big. Rayburn's too big to be hole jumping. Well, I mean, I just don't want to be.
Say that.
Yeah, say that. Yeah. I just want to be like, even my YouTube, all my YouTubes for respect for guys that really fish, not the like I want the respect from those guys. I don't want, so I don't ever want to be known as that guy ever. And I
Yeah.
do, and I go out of my way to make sure I'm never that guy, but
Yeah, I mean, and usually the dudes that do get in, I mean, how many trips I've taken dudes out for tournaments and they don't do good at all? A lot. You know what I mean? And some dudes I take out and they do great, but like at Amstead at Bass Champs, dude, I'd be the week before, or like the week before all limits, I'd be booked solid with Bass Champs, dude.
right.
And some of them did good, and some of them didn't. Most of them didn't.
So this one, and I know the guy that was with Lambert, on Haynes on
Yeah, that was wild. They're bumping boats.
day one. I know,
Yeah.
right. Here's what I'll say. Everyone I think missed that. I think everyone missed what went on there. I don't think anyone really knows.
Yeah, because I don't I just saw what was on TV. I don't know either of them, but it has to be something more than just.
Well, so this is This is what I'll say. So this is my personal experience. There for a while, we got on a roll. I figured out something on Rayburn, got on a roll for a couple years, and it was 30-pound bags and a lot of them, and we were crushing it. And over those years, it was like once a spot got like I said, when you fish these spots and no one's ever there, and you drive every tournament and every practice day, I drive by the same places and I'm looking over there, right? It could be a mile away. And I'm like, yep, no one's ever on there for months or years. No one's fishing it. No one's found it. And then go there and, you're real discreet about how you fish in the tournament. We were try to be sneaky, and the sneaky in the sense of hey, someone's kind of close, we'll come back. And that's how we did things. Well, you're going to get caught, right? And, when you're out there with two different boats, you can be out there in Russell's boat or whatever, and they're not used to it. So I'm like, oh, you remember that boat that we saw last tournament? Look, he's over there getting close, And so we would notice these things. Now, I'm not one of those guys that's I'm the worst about not knowing who you are, or I'll try to remember your boat. I'm like, okay, that's going to be a problem right there, right? But usually I just shake my head. Well, after a couple years, it got so bad, and those spots took so many months to find, just out there in the middle of the day, work. It was a lot of work. The payoff was good, but the work was so much, and then you can lose it on one
drop
of the wrong person seeing it, and it's over with. It's over with because they don't understand how to practice it. They show this spot got bad because guy fished a BFL with a co-angler, then the co-angler was not the co-angler that needed to find it, and then I saw that co-angler on it, dude. And it drove me mad, and I was like, man, I didn't like fishing anymore. I didn't want to be on Rayburn anymore. It got so bad. And I didn't want to go look for new spots because I'm like, I'm just looking for new spots for other people. Right.
Yeah.
And so I stopped fishing deep out there. Probably why I didn't catch too many 30-pound bags. We just stopped fishing deep because I was like, I don't want to fish anymore. It's not fun. I don't like fishing. It's going to piss me off if I stay out there. I think Haynes, this is just my personal opinion. That dude was basically king of Kentucky Lake. And how he found that stuff was almost back before graphs or anything else like that. He put in an insane amount of work. And I think he put in more work than anyone else. And I'm guessing that over time, it was a lot easier and I'm not saying Lambert. I'm just saying I think over time, it was a lot easier to follow Randy Haynes and see where he was catching them than actually go put in the work Randy Haynes was catching.
Yeah.
like do it. And I think, because he made a comment to the co-angler in the boat. Like I talked to his co-angler on day one. He had made the comment, I don't even need to be out here. I need to be working the day before.
Yeah.
And so it was crazy. But I was going, man, I think he was just, you know how many times he probably got stuff stolen from him?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
You know, and he was just like, I can't, I'm over it.
Yeah.
I personally think that's what it was. Is I'm not saying that Lambert did that. I'm saying that I think this has been going on for
Build
years
up. Yes.
where,
Yeah. Like a
where
build
like
up deal.
he
Yeah.
lost spots from people doing that. And then he's out there trying, and all of a sudden this happens and he's like, and he's older and he was fed up with it. I think he was like,
Yeah.
I'm done. Because that's how I was getting. I was getting to the point that I was like, I stopped fishing deep on Rayburn. I'm like, it ain't worth it. It's not like I can't do it anymore.
But do you think that's like lake sensitive? Like not every like there's only like 4 spots in the country that are like Rayburn.
Do I think what?
Not like fishery, but like at Rayburn the community lives and breathes bass fishing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of other places, it's not like that. Like yeah, people fish, but it's not as crazy as at Rayburn or Toledo.
I think I think it's crazy everywhere. I know it happens at Conroe and it happens in places. It happened on Livingston. It's happened on every lake I've ever been to.
Yeah, but like, dude, there's so many tournaments, so many
Yeah,
people.
well, I think that's the issue.
Yeah,
Is it
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
right. So they had that BFL this weekend, and I was like, someone asked me, like, are you fishing? I'm like, no. And I'm like, man, because I'm not worried about my co-angler. I'm worried about other boats, whatever. And I was like, yeah, you can win and win $5,000 or whatever, but the payout's not great. I don't plan on fishing all of them. I don't care about the regional. They got to turn. I also had to coach my son's basketball. And I had to, like, they have another tournament this weekend, and I have 2 games. We got a whole weekend full of kids sports stuff. I'm going to miss my other kids stuff for the Bass Champs and Belt, but at least the payout is like, Bass Champs is $35,000. Brandon Belt's $50,000. So, it's worth it to me on that one. The media bass one that I did good in, I was just out there.
You were just practicing, weren't you?
I was just practicing and used it as a practice day. So, like,
Yeah, people ask me why I didn't fish it, and I was like, this is like a different scenario, but like, I didn't want it to mess with my head. I didn't want to go out there and like see the lake like that, fish it, and then in a month from now expect it to be the same or get a bad taste in my mouth or a good taste in my mouth about something and it messed me up for a month. Because I don't know that place that well like you do. You know what I mean?
Right.
You want to go into it fresh with a good mindset.
We did a lot of we did a lot of different stuff. What's crazy is like most of the time I'm out there, I'm fishing new stuff. So like it's really funny when we see people like pull up behind us and start fishing. And I'm like, you do realize I'm like, I haven't caught a fish in like 6 hours out here, because I'm practicing. Yeah. So like a lot of times it's not even like they'll go fish bad stuff because it's out there in practice,
Yeah. And having a rat boat, dude, I'll be somewhere I've never been before and people like come by and like make a dot or something. I'm like, dude, I've never even been here before. I know.
I know.
You know what I mean? But
I'm just reading. Hold on. I'm just reading all the guys back. Anyways, well, oh God, 2 hours. I got stuff, So let's get into one thing. So you got Rayburn, February. That's your first invitational. So you never fished the invitationals?
No, never have. Never. Just kind of. I've gotten an invite a couple of years, but like, I personally like wanted to qualify for it, like on paper. Like that's just me, and it's if someone gets an invite and goes and that's their chance, awesome, do it. That's not a bad thing. But for me, I wanted to on paper qualify. So I qualified, and then we got Rayburn in February, then West Point in March. Never been there. Never really heard about, which should be fun. I'm excited about that one.
Did I talk to you about the Invitationals?
Mm-mm.
I didn't talk to you a little bit about. I talked to you a little bit about like fishing that as a touring deal, right?
Oh yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
no, yeah, we talked about it.
So Rayburn's not going to count. So I'm gonna wait I mean, I can have you on whenever, but I'm gonna wait till like. Let's do. What's your third event?
Eufaula in May.
I'm in Eufaula in May. Do you follow what?
Alabama. Yeah, it's not Oklahoma. Eufaula, Alabama.
Oh, okay, good. So I definitely want to have you on after the third one. I want to see where you're at. And what I mean by like where you're at, like where I want to see what you're at on the third one, and then like at the end of it all, and then like what you feel about it all.
Okay.
Good or bad? I mean, whatever. Because like I said, we've, me and Ish have talked. Like I know a couple of you guys that are out there, fishing that, and a lot of the guys I know that are doing it, this is their first time. And even one of the guys that was with us at the championship, he knew what I thought about it all, and then he asked Ish. And Ish fished BPT and all that stuff. And Ish was like, found out, he's like, yeah, I'm getting it all paid for. And Ish is like, go do it, which I've always said, hey, like if it's paid for and whatever, like, go do it. Now how much are you missing from your business by doing this?
Yeah. So like, and we've talked about that, like me and my partners, like roughly like 25 days of like good season, like prime time, about 25 days.
Is that a lot?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it is like you can make money definitely doing that, but for me, it's like all my stuff. I wouldn't do this if it wasn't paid for.
Yeah, like
it's just it is. Yeah, you have a dream and want to do it, but dude, it's like if it's not paid for, like there's no, unless you got bukus of money, it's scary to do like trying to fish check to check.
Yeah, definitely not check to check. I always looked at it as what was hard for me, and even for the opens, is like everyone's always in a different situation. And I always tell everyone that, like, you don't know, like my situation, your situation, everyone's situation is different. If I fished for a living, or the way I can fish it where I'm at, and I don't even want to just like, a lot of people think it's just Texas, and I made a lot of money outside of Texas, right? But I made it where I'm not having to drive across the country. There's stuff in Oklahoma, Arkansas. Like my best tournament of the year was in Arkansas last year, right? And then me and Russell went about, like, made a lot of checks last year, did okay. And our expenses were really low because of you start doing this for 20 years, I can go certain places and stay with certain people, just like they can stay with them, whatever, right? I mean, you start figuring out ways to like cut cost. So it's very hard to cut cost on the road because, when you got to go to West Point, I mean,
fuel, staying in a hotel, nobody.
Yeah, but you can't. I don't know anyone from West Point. I'm sure I can make, but whatever. What I would say about all that is that like when the guy you're leaving, my buddy's leaving tournaments on Rayburn and Toledo, and he's killing it. And I said, you might make the same amount of money, right? But your expenses are a lot higher, and you're going out to do all this other stuff. I said, there's other guys in other parts of the country that are making like less than 20,000 a year of fishing tournaments. So like the opens and the invitationals, they might go make 60, right? And their expenses were, say they ended up with $30,000 of profit for them. Well, that's 10,000 more than they made back home. I was telling him, I'm like, dude, I know how much you made. Like you won a boat, you won some stuff. Like you won over 70 grand last year. And probably even I would say he profited at least 70. You're giving up 70,000 of profit potentially, again, because he's been doing it to go try and make. You got to go make almost 100 to get a $70,000 profit in the Invitationals. I mean,
Yeah.
more than that. I said, so it's not so much how much you make, it's how much you make and then how much you're giving up. Now, granted, he might not make a single check back home. I'll take that bet with anyone that he's going to make. Like, you know.
Yeah, and dude, like you said, I think it's different for everyone. Like, for me, am I going to do it to make a ton of money? It'd be cool, but that I'm just going to get some feathers in the hat, go some different places, uh, competing, at a level that's exciting. You know what I mean? Like Toyotas are exciting stuff, but like exciting for me. Like having because I've never done it before, like you and a bunch of other guys. I've never done it before.
It is exciting. The excitement can wear off.
No, totally, just like anything. No,
well,
I
no, what wears off is. So I'll put it to you this way. You know what's always the phrase like more money, more problems?
Yeah.
So driving to I'm just gonna say this. Driving to a lake, it's 3 hours away, and putting up this entry fee and things happen and you don't cash a check, like it sucks, right? A lot of times you can fish the next weekend, right? And get back on the horse, right? With this, and this is where the excitement can leave you. And it does it for a lot of people. It's very hard to let go of it because there's a feeling like the excitement's going to be there. And it is there at times, and you catch it in a bottle at times. Yeah. But what's hard is when you leave. Now, granted, it does get harder when you're married and kids. But
totally.
When you
single, no kids, not like right. easy for me. Yeah.
What's hard is this, and I'm just telling you this. What's hard is when you go that much further, and you drive that much further, and the little things are multiplied because of the amount of money that's being spent in the time. And so when weather day comes and it screws up your entire practice of multiple days, right? Because you practice for multiple days, you put a lot of effort into it, and then like a flood comes, right? And you're like, yeah, what's the big deal? Just saying, and then you don't do good, and you're like, golly, I only had 6 of these, and that one just got screwed up by a flood, right? The excitement drains as just as quick as it started. Well, then the next one you go to, right, for whatever, like, don't let a breakdown happen.
Oh, yeah.
A breakdown, really, and it's not your, but like, and then don't let some BS happen. Yeah. Like some BS in the tournament. And this isn't against MLF, Bass, because it's happened in opens. Like we've seen it on live with some of this stuff, like some things happen, right? And you're like, I hope they handle this the right way. And then you're like, well, what am I doing? How do they not handle this the right way? And it happens at every level, right? They have made mistakes. And I'm saying it happens in small tournaments too. So I'm not saying, all I'm saying is all of that multiplies when you put more money on the line as far as entry fees, time, and the payout. I'm just saying.
Like losing a Toyota check and losing one of these checks is a little different.
It's a little different, right?
I get it.
A last place check in a Toyota, whatever, a $10,000 check in an invitational. I don't know what the last place checks are, but like
I think it's like 8. I think it's like 8.
That's that's a giant
enough. It's enough. Yeah,
it's exactly. Enough. So all I'm saying is like a lot of the times it can be good, but I'm saying it you can lose the excitement quicker because some things it just gets multiplied.
Oh yeah, and dude, and I've experienced that a little bit.
I know.
But I get what you're saying. Like, dude, I was up at St. Lawrence guiding for a month, and then we had a Toyota, and like the first day I caught 3 fish, just totally sucked.
Yeah.
On the way back, screwed up my boat, and like I shared an area with a dude that like needed help, and he did awesome in the tournament. And I was in the same area doing the same thing, and it just like didn't happen for me. And then a boat breakdown, then like it sucks,
Yeah.
but you know, that's just fishing sometimes. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like
so
I hate saying that, but it just happens.
I know. So we've been going a long time. I appreciate you, and we can do this a bunch. But I put this on there so I didn't forget. Okay. Can you describe the nature of a D spot that you had to work for months to find? What I would say is this. I don't know about other lakes. All I know about on a lot of these deep spots are this. They're not Kentucky lake spots in the sense of they're not spots that you can. A lot of times on Kentucky Lake, you can kind of go there any time of the day and catch them. Rayburn's not really like that in the sense of they come and go. Maybe they're good one weekend and not 3 weekends from there. Maybe they're only there in the morning or the afternoon or all these different things. What's hard is you might go fish the best deep. This is why I have problems with like hole jumping, is because a lot of these spots, and this is why I said I didn't want to go fish that guy's spot. It wasn't that guy's spot. I'd fish that a bunch and we catch him there, right? Maybe I caught him there 6 years ago. Maybe whatever it is. You can fish some of the best spots on Rayburn and never catch fish. They're not set up there, and you don't know they're there. Maybe one day you go there and you catch like 3 2-pounders, right? And you don't think much about that spot. You caught 3 2-pounders, whatever, right? Then you see a guy catch a fish like 3 giants off that same spot. And you're like, whoa, I know about that spot. I'm going to go fish it next week. Well, you knew about it, but there was a reason you weren't on it because you caught 3 2-pounders and you didn't think much about it. One of these, we had this spot one time where we found this spot this way. We had smashed on them the week before. We went to this area. Someone was close, and we're like, this tournament's not big enough. So we kept on rolling. And I said, hey, I got that point up there. You know, usually we can catch one cranking off of it in the morning time sometimes. And we did. We catch a 5-pounder off of it. And Russell goes, you got anything else like this? I'll never forget this. I'm like, and I'll be like, well, yeah. So I caught a fish over here like 2 years ago. I swear to you, this is crazy. I was like, I caught a fish there. We saw some guys catch them rattle trapping away from the grass. Like the grass ended, and these guys were throwing down and caught like 3 2-pounders. We had already been through there Carolina rigging, me and my buddy, away from the grass and caught like a limit of spots. And that's all they were. And as we're fishing around, we happen to look back and like, you know, like an hour or two later, these guys were fishing on the grass and they didn't know grass stopped out there. And they threw out there. I'm like, how'd those guys catch them? Like, there's not even grass out there. Like, they just, instead of casting here, they went down it and then it kind of turns and then they're throwing out there and there's no grass out there. So anyways, they catch a couple small ones too. It was like 2 years earlier. Never seen anyone fish right there. And we were fishing shallow there. And I said, yeah, man, I've caught some spots off this point right here. We went over there and cranked it. Ask Russell, because Russell lost 2 of the biggest fish I've ever seen on the same cast. Like he hooked one. So we pull up there and we start catching them every cast, giants. And then he hooks one that we ended up catching 33 pounds in the event. He hooks one. This is when we stopped catching him. He hooks one, can't turn her. He's like, dude, giant, dude, big one, right? So he's reeling it in and he's like, like whatever, and it comes off. And he's like, oh my gosh, it came off. Another one. And that one just screamed off, right? And I think the whole school went with those 2 fish that screamed off. And the whole school went away. Anyways, we caught 33 pounds. That spot was phenomenal for like a year or 2. We found it that way. Now, we had fished it and caught some spots off of it, right? At one point in time. And just so, and I haven't caught a fish off that spot now in like 6 years, right? But I know people, like, no one really knew about it. I didn't really know about it. I just kind of, it happened to line up when I was there. And then that spot was good only because I knew to check it so much. Like I would check it here and there. Sometimes it would catch I know before the Zona show, before I did the Zona show, I knew that's when we knew to go cranking. Me and Jason pulled up there, and Jason catches 11 off of it. And so sometimes it had one fish, sometimes whatever, but it was never that good again. We never caught him like that again. But it became a good spot because, you know, is it luck? Whatever. It's just time on the water. We would go looking for places like this. And I'm not saying there's no telling how many of these spots we went over and they weren't set up there at the time.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're already a needle in a haystack. And then that needle in a haystack, imagine that needle only being there, you know, that you're looking for randomly throughout the week.
Yeah.
Like, right. So a lot of those things you're trying to find, and you find them sometimes and they can be good, but you can tell no one else has found them. And there's a reason why no one else has found them. That area that other guy was fishing, I knew about it. Me and Russell both have waypoints there. We talk about that spot. I always say, like, there's a difference between knowing it's a 30-pound spot and knowing the spot because you caught some 2-pounders off of it. Yeah. And that's where I say the whole jumping's wrong, is because you might have caught a fish here. You just didn't realize 30 pounds could get here. And you wouldn't have been over here unless you saw me fish it. So it's kind of a little different. Like, people ask about hole jumping. That's the way I look at even those spots. They're just like, man, they're not like we go out, we're hunting them, but it's not like we're looking on a map.
It's not, you like, can't see it on side scan or a map. It just happens. It just happens.
And a lot of times you caught some spots there, or like I caught a limit of spots there on a Carolina rig. Dude, we caught like 40, 50 fish that day. Nothing about that. That's why I didn't fish it for a year or two. We just so happened to be so close that Russell's like, I'm like, well, hell, I can go right there and troll over there real quick. I don't know. And they just happened to be, we didn't even graph it. We just trolled over there and just started cranking it because we were going to go cranking all day long. So those deep spots are like that. Can you find them? If you can find them graphing, then so can someone else.
Yes.
And so a lot of those spots might have one fish on at one time and no one's stopping because they see one fish on the graph. Yeah. Like, no one's stopping for that. So you might catch a fish there and I might mark it down. And then like a year goes by and I might hit it every once in a while and all of a sudden catch another one there. And then all of a sudden I pull up there and like catch like 3 big ones. And I'm like, whoa, what's up with that?
Yeah.
And so that's how a spot kind of like, and then you're constantly checking it more and more times. Yeah. But that's,
how many times in a tournament? Yeah. How many times in a tournament, especially when you're unfamiliar with the place, you catch 1 3-pounder and it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, not a good feeding time. And then you go back there in the morning and you catch 6 of them or a bigger one. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's just.
And a lot of them, like a lot of these spots, when we talk about them, is you can see it get different in the evening time. Like spots get like everything lights up in the evening time, which is
normal. Yeah, bait gets higher, everything's moving.
Right. For fishing is fine, but for tournament fishing, you're like, that's a waste.
I hate catching them past like 3 o'clock because you're like, you know what I mean? You're like,
I'm a worker, so I want to stay out there.
Yeah, but sometimes it doesn't do good.
I have to constantly tell myself that was an afternoon deal. And so it's the first thing I go check in the morning.
Yes.
Because I want to see, and I'm like, that's what I figured.
Yep, exactly. You catch them in the evening, you're like, oh, I'm going to crush them. And you go out there and
I've done it too much now that I'm like, well, I got to go check it now in the morning time. I can't tell you how many times Tuesday night. So like, especially if the tournament's on Thursday and they're like, are you going to go out there on Wednesday? Because a lot of times we might take that day off. I'm like, yeah, I have to go out there and see if this is going on in the morning time. And then 90% of the time it's not. And I'm like,
yeah,
all right, well, that's cool. I still figured it, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'll be we have the Brandon Bell at the end of January, and is y'all's the next weekend?
Yeah, it's like the first practice starts like the 5th, and the tournament's like Friday,
Do
the 9th,
you,
9th, 10th,
you
and
have a day
11th.
off?
Yeah.
You do have a day off? I
Mhm.
might get you on your day off.
Okay.
You don't have to like. It might be a real quick little 30-minute deal. Like, what are you thinking or whatever?
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, I appreciate you doing this, man.
Yeah, no, dude, it was fun. Do it again.
This comment section went crazy.
Yeah, it's going off.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Good luck. I know you got to wait for a month on Rayburn. I'll be going out there a bunch, so
Yeah, dude, catch them up.
I will not call you about it.
Thanks.
All
Later.
right.